Hello and welcome to Too Fast, Too Forever. There's all kinds of family, we chose this one. This is episode 130, The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, Lap 7. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe too, and this episode is brought to you by Tokyo-Memories.com. At Tokyo Memories, they pride themselves on curating the best private and off-the-beaten-path food, drink, and walking tours. Their goal is to give you unforgettable experiences of your trip to Japan and leave you with fantastic memories of the sights, tastes, people, and places that make Tokyo great. Shout out to TokyoMemories.com.
Shout out TokyoMemories.com, and I just realized, and I know, I've thought about this before, but because the way we record, we do the second half first, so that's the first time I hear the sponsor, so like my initial reaction is in the back half,
Yes.
But like this is the first time I'm actually hearing the sponsor, so like none of my responses really match up, so I'm going to say to you, dear listener, wait till the back half to hear my witty response. Not really witty, more just like oh, okay, cool. But yeah, it's a weird thing. But Joe, extracurricular activities appropriate because we're talking about Tokyo Drift, and that's where the phrase came from. What have you been up to since we last recorded? There was a show that you got frustrated at yourself that you did not mention.
Yeah, I forget what it was already. You know what I have been watching that's pretty good? I mentioned before, and Wes wrote back in about it. I watched the Jack Whitehall stand-up, right?
You know, he has a new show on Netflix, Travels with his Dad, that I think somebody else wrote in about too.
This is what I was going to say. I started watching
Cool.
Travels with my father, and it is hilarious. Rachel and I really like it. It's really, really cute. I think you would like it too, Joey. Not that it was like skip anything of importance to watch immediately, but it's just like him and his dad, and the premise is like he wants to take his dad on a vacation, and he wants it to be like a bros gap year trip, and his dad's like this old proper Englishman. The very, very first thing, like he's like, come on dad, here, we're gonna stay in this hostel, and his dad walks in and just goes nope, and just like walks out. And just like goes and gets like a really nice hotel room at like a really nice hotel, and it's like, yes, this is what we're doing. You know, he's a comedian, so he obviously cracks jokes, and his dad's actually pretty funny. It's all about like how he was sent to boarding school like really early, so he like acts like his dad doesn't love him and stuff, and like this is like their first time hanging out pretty much, and it's cute, it's fun.
And that's on Netflix, right?
Yeah.
So there's like a new season that just came out, or something just came to Netflix, but I think either it had already aired and it was coming to Netflix, or this is a new season. Is this the first, like, is this the beginning of it?
No, there's like 4 seasons of it, but it's really like, I think the first season's like 6 episodes of like 45 minutes each, and then there's like a couple seasons with like 2 or 3 episodes. So it's not like, 20 episodes. Yeah, it's still fun. Rachel and I really enjoy it, so we were like hanging out watching that. There's a lot of good jokes in it, so.
Anything else of note? Any food adventures, or not adventures, but, new recipes or anything?
No, we've just been cooking. Normal stuff. It's all been good, though. Been eating good still.
Well, my 2 updates, and you know both of these already, but my
What?
ongoing sagas, fantasy baseball
yes.
first. 2 days left. By the time this comes out, the season will be over. I don't know how it's going to go. Basically, right now, it's a coin flip. If I have a better weekend than my opponent, I win. If he has a better weekend, he wins. That's
Wow.
it. Like, it's a 14-day matchup down to basically 2 days. The way that I thought I was going to win is not how I would probably win now, but I have another. It's so close. It's so tight. Yeah, I'm not stressing over it because I'm just not paying attention. I'm just like, yeah, whatever. And then, last night I was watching, because I have a bunch of guys on the Angels, and I had a pitcher on the Dodgers, and I have like best player on the Dodgers too. So they were playing each other, and I was watching last night. I'm like, I shouldn't be watching this.
Yeah.
And by the time I put it on, all my guys were not getting hits anymore, and my pitcher got taken out. So I was like, oh, I really shouldn't be watching this. But because the more important thing, the reason I'm not stressing over it is because I'm continuing to play Spelunky. And in big news, I beat the game not the real way, but just like the basic. Yes. In the first game, there was a way to beat the game, and then there was a real way to beat the game. And I was saying to you that I beat the game it's, again, not the easy way. The easy way, that's underselling the difficulty of this.
Yeah.
The real way, I was saying to you, I'm like, I'm like, oh my God, there's like 18 steps. And you, understandably, were like, is that a lot? And I was like, well, I haven't been to like 12 of the places that they refer to.
Yes, so then that makes sense.
Yeah, there's like an order of operations where essentially the first like 6 or 7 of them is getting to the final, like the regular boss. Seemingly, spoilers maybe for Spelunky 2, so Dan, if you want to skip ahead 30 seconds, you like fly above with like a creature that I don't have yet that I have to find. You fly above the boss into like an upper echelon and then play another 3 levels with like crazy things in between. So
wow, okay.
I'm following a guide now because I beat the boss without looking up how to beat the boss, the first one.
Okay.
Yeah, now I'm just like I would never know. I would never know. That's going to be the next goal. I don't know when this is going to. It seems wildly difficult. And I was saying to you that the tagline on the Polygon.com article says this might be the hardest thing you ever do, which is probably a little bit of an exaggeration, a little bit of a joke, but also maybe not, because the game is wildly difficult, as I've been talking about.
Yeah.
But also it's so involved. It's so involved.
That's awesome, though. It sounds fun. You're still enjoying it. That's good.
Game cost $20, and I don't want to think about how many hours I put in. You know, it's been out for like 11 days,
You
and
sent
I've
me
probably played.
You sent me your like screenshot of like played
Oh yeah.
600 sessions.
Oh yeah, that's actually good. I could probably do the math that way. Yeah.
And I was like, oh god, that's really terrifying.
781 plays. That includes some restarts. 506 deaths. 1 win. And
Yeah,
that's not
insane.
even the real win. Yeah. And the average time is 3.5 minutes. So if you do 3.5 times 781 divided by 60, 45 hours, that seems... maybe that's too high. Hold on. What if I do it by times 506? 30 hours. Yeah, I would say 30 hours. Like an average of 3 hours a day. Yeah, it's a lot.
That's cool though.
It's too early to say, but this might be my favorite game of all time. I mean, Spelunky 1 might have been my favorite game of all time, so this is better, right? So, I don't know.
That's fun.
Wild, but yes. So if you have a PS4 and you want a very difficult but fun game...
Is it only on PS4?
PS4 is coming to Steam maybe this week.
Okay, cool.
So maybe today, as this episode comes out, it might be on Steam now too, on PC. So, yeah. That's it. Anything else of note in the last couple of days? Because it's, again, this Wednesday to Saturday recording there's a tighter window for anything to happen, but...
Nope. It's totally fine. Just moving along.
Cool. We have a Patreon page here in the show, toofast2forever.com if you want to support the show, get some swag and merchandise. Shout out to those who do: Cassie Wilson, Jake Freer, Ben Milliman, Nick Burris, Alex Eldenen, Justin Kleinman, Brian Rodriguez of High School Slumber Party, Haley Gerbies, Wes Hampton, Christian Larson, Jerry Robinson, and Dan the Duke Hayden.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for supporting us, the $5 level or above. Truly appreciate it.
Yeah, it's appreciated. Thank you.
We also have an email address here on the show, family@cageclub.me. And Joe, we got 2 emails today. First up, you're going to know who it's from based on the subject line alone. These are all comments from things you talked about, so once again, please excuse the randomness of this here email from, of course, Wells Lamont.
I'm glad Wells wrote in, and I can't wait to hear it because, like, even the onboard direct emails usually wander a bit. So let me breathe in. Okay, I think I'm ready.
I also want you to get centered because this first thing is a little bit of a flashback to a slight PTSD moment for you.
Okay.
Glad that I think so long ago that I forgot this happened. I'm sure you didn't forget this happened, but like
What?
every day feels like a week. But glad that dildo got arrested. I'm happy to hear that who cheap shotted Joe's pops. I hope he gets his fruit cocktail taken in Gen Pop. When was that? Was that July? Was that June? Was that August? When was that?
It was June. It was no. It was 4th of July. It was 4th of July weekend.
Okay.
Is when it happened. But yeah, he got arrested, and my dad went to like the hearing and saw, because of COVID, he saw like on the screen like the guy get processed, and he's in jail and probably will be in jail for a pretty long time, hopefully. I think he has like other charges. Obviously this guy like wasn't in a right state of mind or something. So yeah, so he's done for. So thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. We're moving along. Dad's doing good. He seems happy and healthy, and so everything's good. He's like feeling better, all healed up from that. Which is not a very long time ago, right?
2.5 months? I mean, it's a while.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a while.
especially when every week feels like a month.
Very true. But yeah, so anyways, he says he feels good and he doesn't have like any lingering weirdness. Like his knee is a little sore or something, but he's old, so cool.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Wells says, I'll send pics of my dog when I finally get it.
Please.
I had this written weeks ago, and the day I was about to go get Boza, the guy almost doubled the price. Said he got more offers. I told him to fuck off. I wanted to throat punch him in jejunum.
In the jejunum. That's shitty. I hate that. This is like this new age hype beast raise the price at the last minute thing. Like if you agreed to a price, you agreed to a price. Go get the fucking dog, right? Like
yeah. Well,
I
mean, the reverse happens too. That when you have something, when you're selling something on Craigslist, and then like, okay, cool, come pick it up, and then they come over like, oh yeah, you said 80, I only have 60 cash. It's like, well, no,
well, then leave.
That's not.
Bye.
Yeah.
I mean, like you could like negotiate before. Like, is the price negotiable? Like when I get there, can I talk to you about it? At least give me a heads up. Don't just like show up with $60 cash and be like, "This is what I'm going to pay for it." Be like, no, fuck off.
Have I told the story I think in here about that guy that bought the furniture from me when I was moving out of my apartment?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, that I wasn't too patient when he showed up 4 hours late. I'm like, no, guy, like, what are you talking about? Like, just get this out of my house. Okay. Well says, anyway, he was a 6-week-old chocolate lab. He was the cutest puppy, and I'm still upset about it. I'm still looking, but I'm not sure what I want now. Sigh. Well, I will tell you that when we get to the deleted scenes for Tokyo Drift this episode, my uncle says there's not just the one.
Don't get too hung up on one.
No, there's way more than one chocolate lab out in the world. That puppy is cute, but it's not the puppy for you. You're going to get a cuter puppy.
Yeah, maybe it's not.
Unless that puppy's Neela, in which case, go get that puppy. But, But even in the end, Neela and DK, we'll get to it. Amazing interview with the game director of the Fast game. I really enjoyed it. Great questions. And he was insightful. Y'all did a really good job. That's the stuff I like.
Thank you.
He made me want to go buy this game not for 60, but maybe 30, LOL. Well, I will say that every Black Friday, every game from that year is usually 35 or 30 or 25 or 20. So if you can wait another 2 months, which I would imagine you probably can, pick it up on sale then.
It was a fun time. And like you heard the story about the game and stuff like that. It was enjoyable and why we liked it, and we explained it. And yeah, if you want to wait for the price to come down, I think it's still worth the play. It was fun if you're a Fast and Furious fan, for sure.
If one more buff dude gets brought into the Fast family, I'm just going to assume Lynn has a type. Ooh.
Oh, that's a hot take. I like that. But I mean, they've been adding buff dudes forever, you know?
Joe's Pizza Hut story is essentially me with Mountain Mike's. Don't know Mountain Mike's. I prefer good pizza, but nostalgically speaking, Mountain Mike's is my go-to. It's got weird crust, weird sauce, but the Ronies are good. And it was always the spot in middle and high school.
I gotta look up Mountain Mike's real quick.
My guess is that it's a Bay Area chain. Yeah. I can imagine a strip mall with a Rasputin and a Mountain Mike's.
It just looks like pizza. You can buy a franchise if you want. Mountain Mike's. I want to see, where, if I type in my zip code, where's the nearest Mountain Mike's? No probably locations found. Here. None.
Okay.
Just cool. Absolutely none. It says West Coast pizza chain, Northern California.
Gotcha. He says Giselle's in some new movie called Wonder Woman 84. He says WW84, but I'm assuming he knows. I don't know if this is a joke. I'm assuming it's a joke. Wonder Woman 84. I'm a catch it at the drive-in. I'll let you know how it is. Well, it just got delayed to question marks. So
yeah, damn. Even the drive-in though, you're gonna have to wait. That sucks.
Mulan supposedly made all this money. It made $250 million, and people were all excited about that. And then someone was like, "Oh, we did the math wrong. It made 60 to 90 instead."
What? No. What? Didn't it come out on Disney Plus?
Yeah. So they thought that on Disney Plus it made $251 million, but instead it was somewhere in the 60 to 90 million range. Someone did the math wrong and reported it.
How do you get that? How is it not 21 million or 210 million?
Well, so it reminds me of a joke that Lewis Black told. I think it's Lewis Black, where he said he was going to Minnesota. It was supposed to snow 6 to 12 inches, I think, and it snowed 36 inches. So, conservatively, you're off by 2 feet. He's like, if you were a roofer and you built a roof that was off 2 feet, you'd be in prison. How can a meteorologist be that far off? But I'm thinking here, that's conservatively 200% off.
Yes.
That it's from 90 to 250 is, it's triple, right? So it's 200% different. Or at worst, it's 300% off. You're not even in the ballpark. You're around a decimal in the wrong place. Classic Office Space situation. Yep. Maybe. But also if it's it wasn't 250, it was actually 200, we factor whatever. But no, you're not even, nothing about that number is even remotely close.
No, and it doesn't make any sense either. You're oh yeah, I forgot to carry the 3. And it's no, you did. None of this math makes sense. So.
Right. Yeah. Says, I'm enjoying binging all these episodes. I now know that I'll never get tired of this podcast. Aw. And I'm here to the day we all die at the same time on the same breath in Fastiverse style. Well, what if, what if Fast 10 ends and everyone gets killed?
No, we get snapped like Thanos. All the fans.
Well, I'm not saying us. I'm just saying now in the movie, they're okay, we're done at 10. It's they all have to be on a rocket ship that has to it's kind of an Armageddon thing. I don't remember exactly. Don't they have to ride a rocket into the sun or something?
Yeah.
What if that's just I said we were done at 10, but then there's obviously movies in between and stuff, but I don't know.
Yeah, just Vin, just all the core characters that are men so that they can't have the Letty-driven spin-off, they just all fly right into the sun. Roman, Tej, just everybody left. Just right in. That would be good. I was thinking he was talking about us, in the theaters. 10 ends and we just vanish.
Our purpose. Well, no, I think I was gonna say our purpose is fulfilled, but I think we've established our purpose now, so we have to talk about it. So we finish recording, you disappear, but I don't know you disappear. You just oh, you just went MIA. I edit and schedule the podcast, and as soon as I click upload and schedule, poof.
It uploads our souls just straight through.
Well, actually, Fastiverse style would be a crazy explosion or getting run over with a huge safe. Either way, pod bros for life. por vida. For life por vida.
Yeah.
I'll be writing in more now, so I'll be blessing the podcast with my random and weird thoughts that no one asked for. Still about 4 episodes behind, but it's better than like the 10 plus where I used to be at.
Yeah.
Okay, brosivs, until next time, I'll catch you in the compadres. On the other side, peace emoji.
Thank you, Wells, for writing in, brother. And it's good to hear from you. But I mean, I knew you were alive. I'd like to respond to all of Wells' sports takes and stuff. So just knowing that he's out there and he's doing okay is good. So, but thanks for writing, and I appreciate the emails, brother. And I look forward to more of them, definitely.
Yeah, I hope you're also not a couple games behind on the Niners, because you are not going to like the injury situation up in San Francisco.
On Coward this week, they were like, these are the injuries in the NFL. And it was like, like 6 big dudes that were like out. And then it was like, these are the injuries on the Niners. It was like 6 big Niners out. Like they had to have 2 panels for it. And I was like, oh God, this is so horrible, bud.
Second and final email from Jenny McMullen, subject line, answers to DVD email.
Oh, cool.
Remember about her DVD contest.
Yes,
so
we were asking if she wanted on the radio. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hi guys, sitting in a parking lot to write this one. Another classic Jenny.
Ooh.
She says over here, just after hearing my emails read, I love that this is quote a classic move, and Joe is like, hey lady. Nobody writes more emails from their car as far as I know than you, so it is a classic move.
It is a classic. I guess Nick writes some from his truck, but he's like in his truck to work, so.
But he's also not saying like I'm in my truck. Like Jenny is saying, which I love, like, oh no, I pulled over. Like I was listening, I pulled over to like explicitly.
It's very responsible.
So,
It's great. Yeah. I appreciate it. Yeah.
She said this is probably TMI, but it's a little claim to claim for me. So here's the explanation. The radio contest was on a national morning show called the Mark and Brian Show. I listened to every day at work. It was based in L.A.
Okay.
And a trivia show called I Want to Crack at That. One weekday morning, I didn't have to be at work till later, so I was able to call in. I made it through. It was a 5-day contest as long as you kept winning. I had to get permission to call from work the next 4 days. Whoa.
Wow,
the whole
okay.
office was listening. There are 10 random trivia questions each day unless you got 6 right and 1. I beat 5 different guys. Damn, okay.
Damn, good job, lady.
The prizes got better each day. Day 1, cheesy trinket with a radio logo. Day 2, a couple CDs. She says one was by Traffic, ? Day 3, DVDs. Day 4, laptop bag with radio logo embroidered on it. Day 5, visit to the studio to see them doing the radio show live.
Ooh.
And entry into the Tournament of Champions with the most recent other 5-day winners. The tournament prize was a brand new Toyota Yaris. Ooh.
Ooh.
I think I've said on here before, I know Toyota Yaris because there was a free Xbox 360 game that came out when the Yaris
Toyota
was released.
Yaris? Yeah.
And the game was so bad that me and all my friends at the time were like, this is awful. What is this? No. I don't know if the Yaris is a good car or not, but I know that the game is terrible, so I'm assuming the car is terrible too. But she says, I never got to visit since they were so far away, but I got to the semifinals of the tournament. The questions were much harder. The guy who barely beat me 2-0 lost in the final. I didn't know any of those answers either, but it was still cool getting that close.
It was awesome. Yeah, that's really cool.
She says, I also won plenty of local radio prizes back then. The local DJs knew my voice. Hey, Jenny, you're caller 9. Good times while it lasted.
That's awesome. Lots of fun. I had a neighbor.
Cool.
I had a neighbor when I was a kid, and she would call and win concert tickets all the time. She was like almost as if she was like a ticket scalper. I remember my dad would be like, hey, I want to go to this concert. And she'd be like, okay, got you. And then like call in and win the tickets from the radio, and she would just give them to him, and he would buy them.
That's super cool. I remember, and I don't know if this actually was the case, but it reminds me, and it's a simpler time, before the internet when you wanted to buy sports tickets or concert tickets or whatever, you had to call Ticketmaster or even your local place or whatever.
Yeah.
They couldn't sell until, say, 10 a.m., but like you called at like 9:50 a.m., and you would talk to them about like, oh yeah, like, you want to go to the Steelers game or whatever. Be like, oh yeah, Kanye's in town. I guess it couldn't be something popular. It has to be something that like, whatever, like, oh yeah, they're in town. Like, let me buy tickets. I'm going to call at 9:50. I'm going to call in whatever. And oh, by the way, it's 10 o'clock. Can I get those Steelers tickets too? So like you sort of like bide your time. And so you're on the line. I'm sure that worked at one point, but now it's just like Ticketmaster or PlayStation, whatever, just slammed with just everybody trying to get at the same time. So yeah, awful. About the old sign-off, I always wondered if it meant something and I was missing out on the joke. Glad you explained it. You guys really are like family as much as I've listened to you, and you're entertaining too. So I look forward to each episode. I can almost hear Joe saying, aw, that's so sweet. Later, Jenny.
It is very sweet. I appreciate it. See, like, we got 2 very heartwarming emails today.
And they almost could not be more opposite in content or tone. But yes, both heartwarming.
Very true. The sentiment was real in both, though.
I can never imagine in a normal, and this is not to criticize or anything about either, but I can't see in any other situation someone like Jenny and someone like Wells ever being friends. But like I know that they would be because of the
Coming
shared.
together.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna have a lit ass party on 13/27. That's all I'm
oof,
saying.
boy. And that's all the emails for today. If you want to email in family@cageclub.me. Also, if you want to leave us a review. So I was looking at our download breakdown. The most popular platform to listen to us on is Spotify, which there's no way to review. But the second most is Apple Podcasts. So if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts and you have not left us a review yet, even if you want to write a review, if you want to just give a 5-star rating, we would appreciate it. Please
Yeah,
and thank you.
please.
Joe, on the streets, news about the Fast and Furious, there is one
Big,
big bit of news.
big bit of news.
And I can tell you that if you feel like I do, this has been a good week.
I'm feeling blessed, to be honest.
Vin Diesel, if you have not heard yet, and I'm sure you have because the internet blew up on Friday when this dropped.
Like
Friday's
everyone.
new music release day.
Everyone saw
And
it.
Vin Diesel put out a club song called Feel Like I Do. Chris Podcast, past guest, friend of the show, messaged me and said he wants to talk about it and then said some negative things. I was like, no, in this house. He's like, I want to be on the show for 10 minutes to talk about it. It sounds like a blah, 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 blah. And I was like, no, in this house, we respect Vin Diesel. And he says, that sounds like something you would say before you heard the song. I don't want to have Chris on here, because Chris already, like, blew up Tokyo Drift in a way that, like, Nico and Kevo were much more fair in their criticisms. Chris was just like...
I think Chris is always fair. He's just
He just
a
hates
negative
everything.
Nancy. He's a hater.
Yeah.
It's okay. He does that about a lot of things. It's not like he just hates Tokyo Drift or just hates like he hates everything.
He hates everything. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's fair.
Here's how I have to frame it. They did an entire episode of Now and Again, Chris and Nico, about vanity projects from actors and other people who became musicians, right? And I think
Yes.
in that regard, I think this is a pretty good song. I think for somebody who is not a musician, I mean, you know, he loves he loves music. If you
We've
watch
seen him
that
dance.
9-minute video that my sister and I, like when that came out in like 2013 or whatever, we watched it so many times. It's just him dancing to Drunken Love and Dark Horse while he's talking about how happy he is that people went to see his most recent movie.
Plus, he was in that breakdancing music video. Remember?
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
yeah, he came up as a breakdancer. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, he's been around it for a while.
But I think in the scope of actor releasing a song who just wants to dabble in music, I think in that regard is pretty good.
I also don't think that he's like trying to be a musician. That's a difference here. He's
Yeah.
like, I made a song because I wanted to make a song, not like I'm now a musician. I'm stopping doing movies. This is my focus. It feels
Yeah.
like he's
Yeah.
like, I just made a song, and if you like it, cool. He's not like pitching an album now, and if he does, cool. But that doesn't seem like this is his main thing. He just seemed like he wanted to do it. He was feeling happy. He's feeling blessed, so he made a song. He feels so happy.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I mean, I listened to it once and I was like, okay, yeah, pretty good. It actually reminds me
Same.
on that episode of someone we're going to talk about a little bit later this episode, but Paris Hilton has a song called Stars Are Blind, which, again, not a great song, but I actually kind of like it. I mean, I kind of like it just in general, but especially for another vanity project, like, yeah, absolutely.
Paris Hilton ones I have a little bit more of a gripe with because she was like being a celebrity in every possible direction she could be in, and this was
Yeah.
made so that she could continue her celebrity.
Although now I think she's like primarily a DJ. Like she's probably just like pay her a lot of money to be like, oh, Paris Hilton's DJing our club tonight. I mean,
That's
not
exactly
now,
what
but,
she
like,
did. Yeah, she had
Yeah.
she had a residency in Vegas at some point, which is appalling that there's real DJs out there and they're paying Paris Hilton to DJ.
Yeah, but I mean, it's all business. I remember,
Yeah.
I was talking to a DJ at a different trade show. It wasn't CES because he had like all these notes and he's like, oh, like I just came off this like I remember it was like a Sweet 16 or whatever, but like he had all these notes like don't play the song, reminds me of my ex, or like he had like all these like do not play the song, you're gonna ruin the day if you play the song. And we talked about like Paris Hilton. I think he was like, it's not as big of a joke as people might think. Like she takes it seriously. I mean, she might not
She's
be as
taking
good
it
as
seriously,
whatever,
yeah.
but like it's not. You shouldn't just like shit on her just because it's whatever. But like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I get it.
Any other news of note in the Fast and Furious world? in the
No,
last
that
couple
was
days?
it. That just eclipsed our whole world for like the past 2 days or whatever.
So the only other thing to do, because this is a main installment Tokyo Drift, we are not doing the Ana Lucia Cortez, Leticia Ortiz Lost for a Minute. We're not doing a Fast and Furious Minute, but we are talking about the deleted scenes, and boy, oh boy, there are
ton.
a lot of them.
There's a whole fucking bunch of them. Some good, some bad, but there's just a lot.
There are 18 minutes. I think there's like 10 or 11 or 12 scenes. And not only are there 18 minutes, but like the first movie, there's director's commentary, which did you listen to that? Did you find that or not yet?
I was using the YouTube ones. So some of them had the director's commentary. I listened to like the beginning of it and I was like, I don't want to rewatch the scene with the director's commentary, and I like how you explained it last time, and I would like to continue that. Sorry if that's okay with you.
Cool. No, that's totally fine. I just
Do you know
wanted
what I'm
I
saying?
wanted to sort of set a
Okay.
groundwork for myself of like
No, I didn't
where
hear
to
them.
go
I like
from.
specifically didn't hear them.
I think they're all available on you found all the scenes on YouTube, right? But they're just a commentary, whatever. There's some of it, but not all of it.
Well, sometimes somebody that ripped it on YouTube would like play the scene and then play it again back to back with the commentary over it.
Okay, yeah, okay.
It was a nice move, but it was only available for some of them. I mean, granted, I didn't like dig very hard for the commentary available ones. I was just trying to match up all the scenes, and I got that.
So the big takeaway from these deleted scenes, so it's 18 minutes out of a 100-minute movie that are taken away. So like it's a sizable, significant chunk.
It
And I
is.
watched them all 3 times. I watched it by itself, and then with the commentary, and then I watched them again. The big takeaway for me is that we lose so much of Earl and Keiko, Leonardo Nam's character, oh god, what's his name? Morimoto.
Yep.
We lose some of DK.
Yep.
Like, it feels, Bow Wow, we lose some of Twinkie too. Like, all the Sean stuff that we would have gotten. I mean, there's some Sean deleted scenes, but that's all in the movie. It feels like everything else kind of simplified, which I understand why.
Especially Han's crew. Yeah, like you said, like you miss some Morimoto stuff, but that kind of involves Sean too. You miss some DK stuff, it kind of has Sean too. But like the scenes with like Twinkie and what were the other names? Sorry, you said it.
So that it's Earl and it's
Earl.
Keiko,
Earl and Keiko.
Keiko, yeah.
Keiko's like pretty much not a character in this movie after this.
What I was expecting to hear from Justin Lin is that sometimes when you have a scene like this that you cut with these other characters, that you then wind up cutting all the scenes with those characters because like without the one none of them really make sense. But
That makes sense,
that's
yeah.
not necessarily true, and he never makes mention of that. Like that's not like a, oh, we had to cut this one because we cut the other one. Like that never comes up again. So I was expecting that to be the case, but I don't know.
Like, oh, if we get rid of Keiko's like this scene, then why is she angry in the next scene? So like we can't have that either. So this
Right.
has to go as well.
So the first scene is called Cabby Wants Yen. And this is when a white-gloved cab driver, which you were in Tokyo, do all the cab drivers wear, like, are they like limo service, or is this unusual?
No. They all wear white gloves. It's like part of the uniform. They're like very into uniform stuffs, you know, like as you see with like the school uniforms and stuff. But yeah, the cab drivers wear white gloves. Didn't I ever tell you like my goofy cab driver story about like we overpaid him and he chased us down to give us a nickel back?
No, that's cool. I like that.
You don't tip in the cab either. You just like pay the price. It was like, you know, like 1995. And so we just like threw him a 20 and like hopped out of the cab. And like we're walking down the street going to like find like a place to grab a beer. And like somebody comes up and like taps me on the shoulder. And I'm like, who the fuck is this? It was the cabbie. And he's like, here's your nickel. Like you didn't get your change. I was like, bro, that was for you. Just keep it. Like I knew I wasn't supposed to tip you, but like the 5 cents after, like that's how honorable and cool it was. Yeah.
I mean, it turns out that if you can't afford your cab fare, they will accept guitars in exchange because
Apparently.
Sean, all I got's US. And so this is the scene where he's getting dropped off before. So we don't get satisfaction. We talk about in the back
No,
half about like the
but
one thing we want, but we don't get that. But we get the scene leading up to that scene.
we do, and we kind of get a glimpse of something that plays into this. And it's the fact that Sean arrives in Tokyo with only US dollars, which means his mother did not prepare him at all.
Look, she could be like, she could drop him off at the airport, and be like, look, go to the currency counter, swap out, like, get yen.
Yeah, but
So
he doesn't. For some reason, Sean shows up and doesn't even have.
I mean, again, that's the whole thing that we were always talking about Sean's dad versus Sean's mom. Then we finally realized, oh wait, no, Sean's a fuck up too. Like the
Yeah, they
simple
all
answer is
suck.
that Sean is wrong.
Yeah, that's a very very good point. Yes, Sean could have just been like, I'll get away without it, and like American dollars are great.
And I made a note that Sean's dad really owes him that. Not only did he leave him at the airport, but then Sean lost his guitar. And so Justin Lin was talking about how like you see him show up with the guitar, like he gets whatever, he like arrives in Tokyo with the guitar. All of a sudden, he seemingly doesn't have a guitar, and that's what happened to the guitar. It's not
That
like there
makes
was a
sense.
continuity error that cut this out. And they said that they cut this for pacing purposes. Ultimately, this slowed the movie down. It became a double beat, he said, with the teacher on the first day of school, just sort of showing Sean as fish out of water. Makes
Also,
sense. It did, like, a lot of these were fun scenes, and I'm glad we saw them, but a lot of them did feel, and I think because they weren't fully done, like there wasn't score or music in a lot of
agreed.
these, but like it felt
Yep,
slow. Like this felt slow in a movie that otherwise
it's pretty quick.
isn't slow.
I agree with all those points. The other thing that I noticed is that the cab was $200. Like his cab
Wow.
fare was like
Okay.
$198. I know cabs are expensive in Japan. We didn't take them too much because like the train is so ubiquitous and cheap. But like, holy fuck! Like, no wonder why you didn't have $200 cash. You know?
Any other thoughts about Cabby Wants Yen other than just the astronomical price of the cab fare?
It makes sense why they cut it, right? Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't. This one didn't bother me one way or the other. Glad we got it. It was a cute scene, but not a big deal. Totally fine. Cut it.
So the next scene is called Crowded Subway, and this is kind of like a longer extended scene of Sean getting to school set to the song The Barracuda. And this is kind of a cool scene because we get some Neela, we get some
This one,
Morimoto. This is the first introduction, the interaction between them.
yeah, this one I feel like should have stayed in the movie because it kind of explains. Like, we never really get why Sean's running late. Like, they have like the alarm clock go off, and I wonder if they added that scene after because it shows you like why Sean's late to school.
Right, because Neela takes his bag to kind of prevent a fight between him and Morimoto. She takes his messenger bag, throws it on a subway that's going the opposite way, seemingly,
Yes,
and
yes.
makes him jump on a car. Like, it almost looks like for a second that she's going to throw the bag on there. If he doesn't react as quickly as he does, his stuff is just gone. But he's able to jump on there and, shows up late to school, Wabaki.
Yes, exactly. That one was cool, and you get the first interaction between him and Neela, and it also explains why, like, when he shows up late to school, she like looks up and kind of smiles at him, like, "Oh, sorry, I threw your bag on the train."
But also, I was kind of protecting you.
Yes, so it establishes that, and I'm sad that we didn't get that part of it either.
Yeah, he walks up to a group of girls featuring Neela and says something in terribly broken Japanese. He says, I tried. And then he says, how about English now? And Morimoto comes up and says, I speak English. And then they have a pissing match. And that's what Justin Lin says, too, that it was difficult to cut. He liked it, but it slowed down the movie. It's hard to cut out Leonardo Nam's intro, the guy who plays Morimoto, but it became redundant, even though it's fun. And then he just made a note of Leo saying, I can't at one point. And then he said Leo tore it up. He's a great guy. But this is like, I feel like Morimoto kind of gets like, we have the fight on the roof in the movie that stays in there, but
Yeah,
he kind of doesn't have the flair of like a cool sidekick that he would otherwise
with
with
some of
these
these
scenes in the
scenes.
movie.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
there is the line. There's the back and forth where Sean says, "I wasn't talking to you, friend." Morimoto says, "I have enough friends," and I was
Yeah,
thinking, I don't have friends.
I got
I have
family.
family. And then
Or
Sean makes like a pool party reference, like a pool party joke. I'm like, that feels like just kind of like dumb American, like I don't know, right? So
yes,
I don't
I
know.
think that's the point of it, but also kind of would have flopped there. So like, why?
The next scene is a showcase for Bow Wow called "Where's My Fizz," and this is seemingly right before.
This is interesting. This was a very interesting one.
And I don't know if you noticed, but this and the next one, which is at the garage, they show up. So a lot of this we were saying before, a lot of these scenes have a lot more of Earl and Keiko.
Yep.
And if you see in the next scene, and from this scene, like they're going from this convenience store to the drift garage.
Yep.
In the back seat, Earl and Keiko are there, and so they actually CGI'd out of the movie. I think they said he
Yes.
turned him into a purple chair. So like in the back seat when he shows up, and we talk about in this episode, like here's some tissues for when you blow your wad.
Yeah, he totally just got rid of them from the movie right there. Bow Wow shows up to the gas station, ceiling pumps or gas pumps from the ceiling. Interesting. Never noticed that before.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Like, have you never saw that before though?
I mean, I wasn't in a car, right? Like,
Oh,
I,
true.
I would
Yeah.
never have to fill up a car. I was like, I had a, like we rode the train. I was in a cab maybe like once or twice when I was there, a bus a
Okay.
couple times. So like never like there was gas stations around, but I guess I never paid attention to be like, does the gas come? Because like I'm not filling up the car, so it doesn't fucking matter. And so he like takes a sip of a soda and then like spits it out and is like, "Where the fuck is my?" Well, he explains who the Hulk is to Sean first, because why?
Well, he's like, because Sean says, why the Hulk? Like, basically,
Yeah.
why pick him? So I guess he's like, I don't know if this guy knows the Hulk or not. So like, I kind of get that, keeping in mind that if they left this scene in the movie, it might not be verbatim. Like, they might have cut down on that a little bit too. But yeah, it's a little bit of background of like, oh, just like Bruce Banner, I'm blah, 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 blah.
So then he's like, okay, he spits out the drink. He makes a Paris Hilton flat chested joke.
Yeah, because he's drinking the fizz. He's like, look at the fizz. This shit's flatter than Paris Hilton.
And I'm like, interesting play. Especially we were just talking about Paris Hilton in the intro too.
Well,
Weird.
that's mostly why I had her on my. I mean, I was thought about Stars Are Blind yesterday with when I listened to the Vin Diesel song, but I was also thinking, yeah, knowing that he makes a flat chested joke, but it's just also it feels like kind of in bad taste in a way. But I mean,
There's a few jokes in these deleted scenes that got cut out, and I'm like, good
yeah,
call. Like,
especially since in the back half of this we're going to talk about how time has not aged this movie well in certain ways. That
yes,
again, like not only dating it to like Paris Hilton's on everybody's mind, but it's also like, you don't have to take a cheap shot at Paris Hilton. Like, she's already getting enough. I don't know.
I'm glad we've moved to a point where like we just don't comment about people's bodies. That should just have been the norm forever, right? Like, hey man, like that's one thing you just leave it alone. Like, who the fuck cares? It's not your body. So yes, that was interesting. But then, okay, but this whole thing is this is a ploy because they're running a scam for them to steal the tires from the gas station.
Yes. And there is a back and forth, and I wish it feels a little disjointed, I think, because we're getting so much of them new at all, but it feels like Earl and Keiko kind of have a will they, won't they, and they make jokes in the later scene, which we'll talk about, but it feels like they kind of like each other, but they're not admitting it, and they're both, he's especially around other girls, like seeming like, Han and everybody, but it seems like they
are a couple.
Yeah, but they're not. Like, it's close, but not, right?
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, like, I like them, Tricycle, like, because she's speaking Japanese, and he's speaking English back to her.
Yeah.
Because I looked him up. He's a British Hong Kong actor. So I don't know if he, just of China, of Hong Kong descent, grew up in England, because he speaks with a British accent, and she is, and, he's been in a bunch of stuff, and she is almost exclusively in Japanese movies. Like, I was like, do I know her? No. Like, she's most known for this, because this is like the only kind of crossover mainstream. I mean, most known here.
My Japanese teacher in Japan, like language teacher, did like a study abroad in England. So there's actually like a lot of people in Japan that like go learn English in England, so they all have English accents, and it's really funny.
I don't want this to sound racist, but like, it sounds funny, like with him speaking, but like because if you grow wherever you grow up, right? So
you get the accent of where you learned the language from. So,
right. So
exactly, yeah. It's not funny in like I'm laughing at it way. It's just like it's very interesting. Like when you see it, you're like, oh wow, like your brain just stutters for a second. Like that's not what I was expecting, right?
And what I also think is funny about this scene is that after they steal, like, because Sean knows what's going on, right, and he sees the tires getting stolen in the rear view. He knows why Twinkie is making such a scene, and then he's like, "You got cars to go with those tires." And what I love, like, this is such a great line where Bow Wow Twinkie just says, "You don't like to smell the roses, do you? Like, you gotta take a breath. Like, just we're good.
Just chill for one fucking second, there, bud."
Seriously. Yeah. So Justin Lin said he missed this scene, but for pacing purposes, had to get cut. It's a fun scene for Bow Wow. He wanted to make him seem fluent and bilingual. Apparently, there was the Japanese consultant on set, Michi, who was very impressed by Bow Wow's ability to learn the language so quickly. They filmed this. This is one of those things that they actually filmed in Tokyo. And Jesselyn was talking about how when they were filming, they had like noodle trucks driving around. And he said he got the best bowl of ramen he ever ate in his life from one of these noodle trucks just driving around Japan, which I thought was pretty funny.
Oh, that's cool. That's a cool tidbit.
He was also saying that this is Jason and Keiko, or maybe her name is. Hold on, because what's confusing to me is because I don't know her name because the movie cuts it out.
Yes.
But there is her character name is Reiko, Reiko.
Okay.
But the actor's name is Keiko, Keiko.
Okay.
So like they're the same in my brain, I never hear it or whatever. But yes. So he said it's Jason Tobin and Keiko Kitagawa, so Earl and Reiko's intro, and then he sort of hints at the future. But the other thing of note, and I don't know if you caught this, I didn't know the song, but I think you'd be more inclined to know the song. They play an MC Hammer song at the end when they pull away, and there's MC Hammer advertisements at the gas station.
Oh no, I didn't catch that. That's really cool.
Just like an MC Hammer kind of theme here or whatever.
I saw MC Hammer's Toyo Tires like advertisement, and I thought that was really strange, but I didn't catch that they also threw an MC Hammer song in there.
That was that one, but then that kind of bleeds right into the next scene, which is called Han, DK,
and that
Alden,
and that one ends like right as they would be pulling into the parking garage, like our first experience of the drifting, right? Like that's what we're leading to.
And this is like an extended alternate scene because we see shots that we've seen, like we said, of them of Twinkie giving Sean the tissues, of Morimoto bending the girl over the engine to kiss her or whatever.
Yeah.
And it feels a little out of place, like he's talking to Han and DK from inside the car. And it feels like they would have done things differently if they kept the same. Like these are just like reaction shots. They're just like this looks like if you or I were like, hey, we're in the scene with Han, like we're just shooting the car, and they're like, oh yeah, just Han looking at you. Like it feels incomplete or just off.
It does. These feel like stand-in scenes. Like they were like, oh, we had these, so we'll put them in there, and they didn't have those parts of it. Like they had pre-cut it after they like just shot this and didn't even fill in the gaps, right? They were like, okay, no, like we're already not using this, so because they just use like the same intro that you get like as you're driving by, and like he's like talking to Han and DK, and they just like are just standing there like not looking at them, like just barely looking at them. So it's like feels weird.
We learn some information here that we get later in the movie. Like we get that DK's uncle is the head of the Yakuza,
Yeah, but we
which
get that later.
Twinkie says is like the Sopranos with real bullets, and then he calls Morimoto a-hole number 2, which I think is, all right, fine.
Cool.
But what I
Yep.
thought the most interesting thing about this scene might have been, Sean's trying to figure out why he's calling him Egghead. He's like, oh, Egghead, I get it, white on the outside, yellow on the inside.
Yes.
Which is like a Twinkie reference of
Yes.
yellow on the outside, white on the inside, even though that got cut. Like, it's a weird thing.
And he's like, no, he's just a bald guy. Look at his head; it looks like an egg. And I'm like, so we had to explicitly explain the slur, like very very weird, very very
Because
weird.
it's the reverse of a Twinkie, but like, what
Yeah.
is yellow on the inside? Like, I don't understand. Like, that's because he's talking about like a head, like a brain, right? Like white on the outside, like it's kind of like a bald white head, but like, what does yellow on the inside mean?
No, he's saying that he looks like a white guy, but is a slur for a Japanese person.
Okay, but
So he's
okay.
yeah, but
Like,
either way,
it's
like
weird that like
it's
it's weird that
stupid.
Sean goes like to Egghead, but it'd just be like the Egg Guy, Eggman, right? Because like that would make more sense. But like to think that like it's that Sean is like, oh yeah, Egghead, I get it. Like, but it feels like a little off.
It does.
It doesn't make
doesn't
sense. Yeah.
it doesn't track. Cut this whole fucking scene. Like I mean that part of it. But then we get a cute Bow Wow does choreography dancing in the parking lot, which I thought was interesting that they had these people doing dance choreographies in the parking lot for God knows how long to shoot this scene that never made it in the movie.
Yeah, this is called the para dance, apparently. And this whole scene was cut because they wanted to get to the race more quickly. Justin Lin said seeing Leonardo make out with a girl here means more, which I don't know that it does. Like, I kind of get it, but I also kind of
What?
don't. Whatever.
Who's Leonardo?
He's Leonardo is Morimoto.
But we see him like grab her ass in the normal version.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. He just said it means more with the context here. I don't know.
I I mean,
Whatever.
it's his movie, but I don't
Right.
agree.
The para dance was a dance that Bow Wow did not want to do, but he convinced him to do. Bow Wow wound up having fun with it. What I think is interesting in the director's commentary, Justin Lin is calling him Bow, but not like what's his name, Shad Moss, right?
Yeah.
Not calling him Shad, he's just calling him Bow. I'm like, oh, okay, like that's not really his name, but I guess that's just what he went by on set, right? So that's
Yeah, you know, your nickname can be anything. So it is interesting, though. That is very weird.
I thought this was okay. Like I think that this felt unfinished in a way that the other ones didn't, and like the dancing scene, this one is one of the easier ones where I was like, oh yeah, like I have no interest in keeping this in. Like other stuff,
Yep.
I might be like, oh, add it in, but here, just like yeah, okay, I get it.
I'm 100% with you, brother. Yep, feeling the same way.
Next one is a quick one called Yak's Girls, and this is where Han is kind of giving Sean an intro to the city about not for your eyes, bro. Those girls belong to the Yaks, the Yakuza. They only wear black to the funerals because then they go to lots of funerals, right?
He also says Yakuza very strange in this scene. I see why this was cut, but it's also cool because this is the alley that Sean goes back to give the money to DK's uncle.
Yes.
So it establishes that this is like a shady place that Sean shouldn't be at. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. But we really don't need it to know that just by their body language when he walks in, right? So I get it.
Yeah, and Justin Lin said this is the intro to Kamada's Alley, which goes to that point, right?
Yeah.
But it gives you a sense of the people. And he was talking about how in researching this movie, he got to hang with a Yakuza guy. He said it was pretty crazy. He told him stories about cutting fingers and killing people. And this guy actually came up with the funeral line about we only wear black to funerals, we go to a lot of funerals. And so a little bit of background there. But again, it's kind of a quick thing like we get it. We get it. We understand.
The Yakuza are like so flagrant. Like we met this kid and he had all these tattoos. And we're like, oh, those tattoos are really cool. Like, where did you get them? He was like, I was in the Yakuza. Like, that's like,
Oh, okay.
yeah, you're like, there you go. Like, they're like, it's just known, and they'll like stop traffic. It's cool. Interesting line though. I like that he got that from a guy that was in the Yakuza. Like, we only wear black to funerals. It's cool.
Yeah. The next scene is probably the weirdest scene of the bunch. This is called The Night Before, the Morning After. And this is kind of just establishing the family vibe, the family aesthetic, them in Han's garage.
Yes.
Twinkie comes out and somebody puked in the bathroom. They make Sean clean it up. They're talking about whatever, and this is more Earl and Reiko fighting. And it's cool. And there's a little bit of trivia that I will say from the thing, but like overall, I was just like, I don't understand this scene.
Well, I think it's like to show that like Sean's the new guy here and he's gonna get hazed. That part
Yeah.
I get. The scene's a little long for that. And why is Reiko so angry? If this was my character that was just like angry girl, I'd be like, come on, man. Like, can't I do something else? Like,
Again, it goes to the whole like they don't know how to write female characters, and like they even say like where Earl is like, "Are you on the rag?" It's like, well, don't say that. Like, write her better. Like, I don't understand. Like, we never get a payoff to why she's angry,
no,
right?
and there's no explanation for why. Like, why is she just angry? Like her whole character traits are anger.
Like, she might be angry because she likes Earl and Earl's with other girls. Like, that kind of makes sense, but we never understand. Like, that never comes to a head, right? So.
No, no, and especially, and then they just cut her out completely. But like, even here, it's like, what were you trying to do? And she's just angry. Like, it's not even like it's like the undirected anger. I'm glad that they got rid of this one too.
So this was again cut for pacing purposes. Justin Lin said that they had more fun shooting than how it turned out, which seems fair. Like, it seems like this is probably a blast to film because there's like so many people and so many things going on and whatever.
And yeah.
He said the idea was to get a sense of the building the family and introducing the environment. It was fun and nice, but ultimately didn't help move the story along.
Nope.
The cool thing is that Justin Lin's brother is the guy in the pod with the two girls who like lifts the thing and just like, hey guys, come on. Like, that's Justin Lin's brother.
That's
and
cool.
He said that I had to cut it out. My dad's going to kick my ass, which is pretty funny. He talked about how Keiko's very good in the scene, which I don't know that she is. That we're just talking about that. Like, it feels like she's doing stuff, but it's like, why? I don't know.
Yeah.
And apparently, in the gag reel, which we have not watched, which we'll watch in a future lap, Lucas Black and Bow Wow made her, quote, go off, and she, like, exploded in some way that made everybody on set laugh for, like, 5 minutes. So, like, I don't know if she just channeled the anger. I don't know where that came from, but I guess we'll get to that when we get to that.
We need like a deleted scene to fix the deleted scene here.
Yeah, just a weird. I don't. It's too long, and like I don't know.
I'm with you. Cut it.
The next scene is the aforementioned in the Wells email, 1 in 6 billion. Now I was trying to figure out, why is Sean delivering money to DK? Is this? Do you think this is the money that Han makes him get from the bear paw guy?
I don't think it necessarily has to be that. I think that Sean is just Han's delivery man now, so he just like sent him to go drop the money off to DK. Like, he's saying, like, it's just reaffirming that he's the money pick up and drop off guy. But it does feel weird that Han wouldn't just, like, why doesn't Sean bring it to Han and Han brings it to DK?
And this is where DK starts talking about his uncle, about never told him to get hung up on one girl. There's no such thing as the one. There's 6 billion people, but I have to disagree. Neela is the 1 in 6 billion, don't you think? And Sean just says, see you next week.
Yeah. What do you answer to that?
That reminds me of the Letty driving away from Owen Shaw. Like, there's nothing. There's no win here.
Yeah, there's no way to win, and like it's awkward. It's cool to see more DK here, but I can see why they cut this scene too. Because like, what is he doing? Like, he's not even like really intimidating Sean. He's saying that like, I like this girl. Like, if he would have threatened him, it would be like, oh, okay, that's something different. But he just tells him like, oh no, that's the girl that I like. So, okay, cool.
What I liked about this, like, there's DK intimidation, like, hey, back off my girl, but it also feels in a way like a tender side of DK that we don't otherwise get.
Yes, you're right, because he's like, he cares about Neela so much, she is the one for him.
Because we hear like the backstory of like how she was, kind of like taken in by the family or whatever, but we don't really get a sense of. It makes me wonder sometimes, like, if she was just the one who was there and he just kind of developed a crush on her. But it feels like no, like he thinks that she's special, and maybe he's building up a little bit just to, like, needle Sean a little bit more. But it feels like no, like he cares about Neela.
He does, yeah. This is his soft side, but why does he tell it to Sean and not Neela? It's weird. Okay.
Maybe she knows. I don't know. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, she says something eventually where she's like, yeah, that's like, you don't know him like I know him or something. Because he's right. Like, that guy's an asshole. And she's like, you don't really know him.
So Justin Lin said that this was something that they wrote and thought it could be interesting, and they just wanted to shoot it and see how it turned out. He said they did a good job, but they went into it shooting to try, see what they could do, have a little bit of a face-off, get to know DK, the way he thinks. They wanted to do something different. They wound up. There would be score here, but it was abandoned so early on in the cutting that they didn't. There's no music written for this.
Makes sense.
They were trying to bring in the notion of Uncle Kamada, which again, this feels like at least the second time that he's been mentioned and cut out, right? About Twinkie saying it, and maybe Han saying it, and now here maybe the third time, right? He said that's what's fun about movies sometimes. You can go for it, and if it doesn't work, it ends up in the deleted scenes. It's like, nope. Okay, sure.
That's a good point. Like, if I was making a movie, I think one of my methodologies would be to, like, shoot extra shit, and if it doesn't work, then you're just like, okay, you don't have to use it.
He says Leo, again, Morimoto, had the most fun kissing everyone he could get his hands on. Like, he is kissing a different girl in every scene, or just, like, handsy or whatever. Like, Han is, arm around 2 different ladies in every scene, but Morimoto's, like, actually making out with probably 5 or 6 different people in these scenes, which is... okay, sure, go for it, I guess. But
get it.
Weird.
Sure.
The next scene is one of my favorites because of the background, I'll tell you that. And also, I had to put on this is the one scene where I had to put on subtitles because I was like, I don't know what he's saying.
Oh, I had to play it a couple times to just to make it out. I didn't put on subtitles, but I had to play it a couple times to figure out what he was saying.
It's called Wasabi, Dad sees Sean's Evo. This is when Twinkie and Earl are eating sushi, and Earl is like loading up on wasabi. And
yeah,
they
he's
get
putting
the
a
idea
ton.
to dare Sean to eat the wasabi without telling him what it is.
Yes, exactly.
What's the equivalent? What is 2,000 yen? What's 4,000 yen? What does that translate to in dollars?
$20 and 4. There's no decimal points, so just
Oh, okay.
just move it over. I mean, it's definitely not like a 1-to-1,
That's close
but it
enough.
fluctuates around 1-to-1. It's close enough. So for all intents and purposes, it's like $20 or $40 is what he's saying.
So he offers him basically $40 to eat a huge bite of wasabi, and Sean
Huge bite.
does. Before we talk about more of the scene, he actually did this.
Oh, you can see it in his face because he tears up 100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
His eyes started watering up. Of course, we could only do one take. Justin Lin said he was probably shitting fire for a week.
I mean, yeah, maybe.
Sean takes it and like does a better job with it than I could, and he says, quote, raised on habaneros, bro, radishes ain't gonna cut it.
Yes.
And everybody goes crazy. But I was like, but the way he says it in his like flat kind of delivery
and
his Southern boy affectation.
He just ate a whole mouthful of wasabi. You see it like in his face, like he's trying to say this, but like his mouth is on fire, right? So
I can't. The way he says habaneros is
I heard
crazy.
Reyes has habaneros.
Reyes by habaneros.
Yeah. And I was like, what is Reyes habaneros or something? And then I was like, oh, raised on habaneros.
Raised on habaneros, bro. Radishes ain't gonna cut it.
Do you like wasabi? Have you ever eaten wasabi?
I do. I like wasabi. It kind of got the horseradishy thing. Like I like that nostril clearing heat. Like I do.
It's
I do like
astringent.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, if I ate that much though, like it would really hurt my nose because like it always like goes up your nostrils really bad. It's a different.
Like I don't eat sushi enough to have like a real ratio down. So sometimes I put like a little bit and I can't really taste it. And then sometimes with too much on, not anywhere near this where it seems like a tablespoon essentially, right, of wasabi, if not more.
Yeah.
I kind of err on the side of too much than too little because I do like that heat. But yeah, this is crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. I couldn't do it. I would have like vomited or something.
Dad sees Sean's Evo. This bleeds into the next scene, which is also cut. And then this is when Sean returning home just saying, I got a job, deliveries. And this is Sean's dad, an old Japanese man, eating and drinking outside. That old guy was the assistant director. And so
that's cool.
Justin Lin was bummed that he couldn't make it into the final movie. But it was nice to have, sort of this guy behind the camera on camera for a moment. Doesn't have any lines, but, it's just there.
Yeah, it was cool. I see why they cut that tiny scene too, because it's like, it doesn't really matter.
That reminds me of from the first movie, like Jesse being like, "Oh, I got a disc. Like, let me go pee, and then I'll go get the disc." It's like, oh, we don't need this.
Yeah, don't need it. It's totally fine without it.
Next scene is called Golf Drifting. What I love about this, it's so on brand for the show, Dead Mall.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't really think about the dead mall aspect of it, but you're right, they're in a dead mall.
And this is Earl just talking shit about everyone Han's friends with. Like, is this
Yeah.
the Special Olympics of drifting? He's talking about how, like,
Yeah.
Reiko sucks at drifting, and Bow Wow drives a minivan, and, like, Sean can't drift, and whatever. And so they take Earl, and they strap him to the top of the Volkswagen Golf, and they drift through a slippery, like it's actually slippery. He's actually strapped to the top. Bow Wow crashes into a mall.
It's fun. This is a fun scene, but doesn't contribute anything. I get why they cut it too. It was weird to see him strapped to the top of the car. And also, like, he's just so aggressively mean to his friends in the beginning of the scene. I'm like, I'm not invested in this one.
So apparently this came about because the garage that they had scouted was on the first floor of a building, and this mall was on the second floor. And it was actually under construction, and it was just available. And so they convinced whoever, I guess, owned the building to let them shoot there. But that is an actual under construction mall that was vacant, that it wasn't just like a separate location, just above where they were shooting, which I think is pretty cool. Which I think goes to your point of, like, doesn't add anything. Like, it probably might not have even been in the original script. It's just like, hey, we've got a mall. What can we do with this?
Yeah, we got a mall. What can we do with this? If it works, we keep it in. If it doesn't, we can cut it out. Not a big deal. It's like above us. Like, why not try to use it?
And Justin Lin had two regrets about cutting this. Number one, his brother, once again in here, says a line at the beginning of the scene, like he dropped something off or whatever. But number two, this is really the only time that Bow Wow gets to drive. And so he was bummed that that got cut from the movie. So
makes sense.
The next one I was hoping for more, and it becomes something different than I was expecting based on the name. But the next one is called Happy Birthday to Han. And my first thought was, where's Roman?
Yeah, seriously.
But, Han's just having a huge birthday party and just surrounded by a harem of women.
A ton of women. And it seems like it's a continuation of, like, one of those parties. It looks a lot like the other Russian model party scene.
Yep.
And, like, also the previous scene where somebody puked in the ceiling before that deleted scene. So I'm like, okay, it's kind of redundant. They have parties. That's fine. But it's like this twist is it's Han's birthday. But after we get through there, Neela shows up, right?
Yep.
And she has a present. And Twinkie's like, okay, he's in the back. And that's when we get arguably the corniest lines ever delivered in a Fast and the Furious movie. And that's saying a lot.
It's the same vibe, sort of, as Han saying, this is my Mexico, but like not. It's again just.
Corny.
I was hoping the scene would be about Han. It's not about Han. It's not about Han. Like he doesn't even have a line.
No.
But I was like, okay. But then there was a nice moment between Sean and Neela, and this is the second time in the deleted scenes that we've cut Sean working on his car, which I think is kind of cool. Like he's always doing that, right? So I think it's
Yeah.
kind of cool, pretty cool. But yeah, Neela says, "There's no right or wrong in drifting. How you drift is who you are. It's like fingerprints. Everyone's different. Fast, slow, smooth, rough. It doesn't matter." And I was like, oh.
Little sexual innuendos, too. Drifting is who you are. It's like your fingerprints. Like, come on, man. Like.
So she shows up in what Justin Lin describes, and is fair, the shortest skirt possible for a woman to wear.
That's fair.
She's wearing a very short dress and like thigh-high boots.
Yes.
And with the gift, right? And
yes.
Sean, maybe overwhelmed by her beauty or whatever, is just like, question about cars? I'm like, guy, like that's okay. On brand, sure. She says, the way you drift, I'd soften the rear suspension. He's like, what's wrong with the way I drift? And then that's when she delivers. So it makes sense in the scene, but it's also like, come on. It also reminds me somewhat of the next movie, the 20% angel, 80% devil line. Like it's got that kind of vibe, but
it's cornier. Yes,
yes.
It has. Yeah. They're trying to get to here. They're trying to get to the price, like the price of a car I'm willing to pay to learn what a man's made of. Like they're trying to get one of those going, and it just doesn't work. Like word wise, syntax wise, like dialogue wise, it's just not the same.
And I don't want to blame Natalie Kelly because I think she's great, and we talk about in the back half of this episode that this is her first on-screen role. I think that if it was a more seasoned actor, it might have been delivered a little bit better. Like it's a difficult line, I think, for anybody to deliver, but it's also
that's fair.
So Justin Lin said that a lot of these scenes were designed with the whole crew in mind, the family atmosphere. This is Han with his girls. We really wanted to explore more of Sean and Neela. I also thought it was interesting that, like, he's doing these director's commentaries before... He might know that Han returns in 4, but it's, like, before we know really who Han is. So I was kind of, like, wondering if he's going to, like, hint... I'm like, oh, wait, no, this is recorded, like, way before, right? Like, this is, like, It was kind of, like, messing with my mind a little bit about, like, am I going to learn anything more about Han? It's like, oh, not really, because, like, no.
This is... I have points about that from the next one, in the next deleted scene. But yes, go ahead.
And he says... I think it worked pretty well. We wanted to explore the more of Sean and Neela, but we had to keep the story moving. You have to sacrifice these scenes. The whole idea of drifting, we get that in the Dragon Run sequence.
Yep.
With them drifting the mountain road. So we don't need that here. It's kind of like, yeah, everybody can drift, everybody whatever. But it's a nice scene. It is a corny scene. I wouldn't mind if this was in there, given enough time. I mean, I would love this line. Like, it's a corny line, but like, all these movies are kind of corny, right? Like, I would love this. Like, if this was in there, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I'm on board.
Yeah, your drifting is like your fingerprints.
This is the kind of quote that would be in the Zimbio quiz. If Neela was an option, right?
Yes, I agree. Yep.
And the final scene, the final deleted scene, is a kiss before Kamada. Is this the first time? So this is after Sean beats DK, and they drag DK out of the crashed car. Is this the first time? Do Sean and Neela kiss in the movie? I'm trying to think, and I don't know that they
remember, dude. I was trying to figure out like how this scene was different than the one we see in the movie, and like other than DK, like I don't think you see DK get dragged out of the car in the first one.
So I'm having a hard time, and we literally just watched this, whatever.
I can't piece how it's different because it's using clips from the movie anyways. You know what I mean? It's not vastly different enough. What we're trying to explain is it's not vastly different enough to distinguish what's not in the movie.
Justin Lin said this was cut because that kiss, like he said, it takes away from what the movie was about. It's not about the kiss. It's about the characters defining themselves. They said that this made it into a Sean and Neela thing, but the movie really isn't. And I was like, oh, right, like, yeah. Because, like, there is a will they, won't they. It's kind of him taking DK's girl, kind of, but it is more so about becoming friends with Twinkie and Earl and Reiko and Neela and Han and whatever, right? Like it's a bigger story, and it's not about them. Like it doesn't matter if they're together or not.
Isn't the main driver of this movie.
Yeah. I was saddened by the absolute utter disappointment in Kamada's face. And again, this might be some variation of what we see, but just like his teary-eyed kind of like goodbye to both Takashi and also Neela. Like him saying at the end, like Neela, like, you know, you've spent your time, because she's kind of like an uncle or a father figure to her too, right? Like you're free to go. So this is like a kind of an emotional moment from Kamada. Like he kind of comes out short in all this too. Like we have more building up his mythology, but also him delivering this.
The thing that I was focusing on with this one now, looking at it in retrospect, that we see the car flip in the movie. We don't see the DK get pulled out of the car in the movie.
Right. Yep.
And then we know that Han's car flipped in the movie.
Yep.
And we know that he's alive now with the trailer of 9. So can we
Mm-hmm.
imagine that like Justin Lin used this specific scene that he cut to be like, "Oh yeah, we could have dragged Han out of the car and then like it would have been fine," right? Like it's very very weird. So,
It is very weird. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think what we will talk about in the back half of this is the differences, the actual visual differences between the crash in 3 and then the crash in the credit scene in 6. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where that idea comes from, right? That's a good point though. That might be it.
yeah, and it's like it's interesting to look back on it now and think about this. Like we always say we don't see a body, right? And that's like a very common version of this. We do see Han like kind of reaching out of the car. Like Han is not dead. We expect him to die from the explosion, but then we
Right.
know now he's still alive, so we have to believe that he came out of the thing. And also, we see the same type of sequence when we have Letty flips the car, and then you see
Yep. Mm-hmm.
so he's constantly reusing this thing, so it's interesting to see it here and be like, yo man, remember in Tokyo Drift when we pulled DK out, we didn't use that scene, like let's do that for Letty now,
Yep.
like it was something cool that like really took my brain down a weird path to try to figure out what was happening.
The only other note from the director's commentary about why they cut this or sort of the feelings on this is that he was saying that Justin was saying that Brian T, who plays DK, plays Takashi, did such a good job here, like the vulnerability and him just like sad and like I can't believe I failed myself and the family and whatever. That he felt bad that they had to cut this performance because
Makes
it really
sense.
gave him a moment again, kind of another emotional sort of moment like we had before him talking about Neela.
Yeah, I get it.
I would say overall, so 1 had a bunch of scenes, 2 had some scenes, 4 had did 4 had none, right?
Yeah, one of them had none. I don't remember which. Maybe 4.
And then 5 had a couple, like 2 minutes, and 6 had, like this is by far, this is more than every other deleted scene combined in time. I don't know that they're as impactful as the first one, but I loved watching like these. This is great. Like this is what I was hoping to get for
All of
again or
them.
out of the yeah exactly.
I know, I 100% agree with you. And I know that we had seen a couple of these. I definitely remember the wasabi one, and I remember like in an earlier lap, I had like was looking for a scene and I found this, and I like watched a couple of them, but to see all of them together was really nice too.
I said to you like when I put in the DVD last night, the Blu-ray, and to see the deleted scenes, I was like, oh my god, like there's 18 minutes. Like we were thinking, I knew that there were deleted scenes, but I guess I was sort of trained or whatever. Oh, the last couple of scenes, they had 2 minutes, whatever. I'm like, I don't know how much there's going to actually be to prep. And then I was like, oh, there's 18 minutes over like 11 scenes and director's cut. Like there's a lot. Like this is the kind of like this is the reason you buy Blu-rays essentially, right? Because it's like, oh,
Yes.
there's actual content here, there's actual backstory and whatever. So
Yeah, I agree.
any other thoughts about the overall deleted scenes? Again, I think it's worth watching. We'll add them to the Too Fast, Too Forever YouTube playlist. But anything else of note you want to say about any of these deleted scenes?
They're good. They're interesting. I'm glad to add them to the thing. I couldn't add the one video. It's being weird, but
Let's take a break. Let us welcome in Nico and Kevo, and let's talk about Tokyo Drift for the 7th time. Well, actually,
yes.
the 9th time, because we did it with the Slumber Party and third
Triple.
times, right? So, whoo
Yeah.
boy, Tokyo Drift.
Welcome back to Too Fast, Too Forever. This is episode number 130, Fast and the Furious, Tokyo Drift. This episode is brought to you by TokyoMemories.com. They offer an array of specialty crafted walking and food tours guided by their knowledgeable and friendly local guides, where you can stroll through charming neighborhoods, sample delicious street foods, enjoy a night out, enjoying Japan's legendary food and drink culture, and get a truly local insight into the huge city of Tokyo.
Well, shout out to TokyoMemories.com. A lot of my memories of Tokyo are from this movie. Is that weird?
That you've never been there, so you only have Tokyo Drift memories?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
With us today, of course, as they are all lap long, joining us for Tokyo Drift are back in time to go forward in time. We have to go back. We have with us today the co-hosts of the HTML podcast, Nico, Vasilo, and Kevo Risse. Hello, guys.
Welcome.
Well, you did this to us. You really did, didn't you?
You guys really didn't like this movie?
No.
Absolutely not. Bottom of the 6.
Really? Okay,
Interesting.
it's a very polarizing one. This is it. This is like
I won't spoil why I think this. We'll get into it when we get into it, but I think for Nico and Kevo, this would have played a lot better after 2, I think.
probably. I think so.
Even after 2, it would have still been racist, homophobic, misogynist, mean-spirited, lacking an understanding of Tokyo culture.
Yeah,
and
don't forget xenophobic.
Xenophobic, problematic, hateful, and genuinely a movie that doesn't understand the people that it's targeted at. That's going to be a
But
problem
how do you
for me
really
after
feel?
I even liked parts of it, but time was not kind to this film.
So this is a very polarizing movie, and not necessarily for those reasons, but this is one that's either like people's favorite in the franchise or least favorite in the franchise, and there's kind of no middle ground. And so even if you have different reasons for not liking it, you're not, I mean, nobody's ever right or wrong for liking or not liking something, but you are
Yes.
not alone in not liking this movie.
A lot of people don't like it. A lot.
Well, whether it's that all of the women are window dressing or that any of the good guy Asian representation are essentially magical Asian wizards here to make your wishes come true. I mean, I was literally doing like flapping fairy wings as I was doing that.
Oh, I felt it. I
You
felt
could
it.
possibly hear the gallop. It was so troubling how anyone who wasn't an Americanized identity was instantly expendable, or anybody who represented the true heart of Tokyo and was somebody with a strong accent and ties to the community was just straight the fuck up evil. Those were your two choices. You could
Yeah.
either be American or you could be evil.
Or you could be in the Yakuza.
Well, actually, they go out of their way to make it very clear to us that a bunch of the worst people in this movie aren't even in the Yakuza. They're Yakuza wannabes. So what they're even telling us is the ones who aren't good enough for a life of crime spend all of their time wanting to be as horrible as murderers and rapists and drug runners.
Before we get into all of that, because there is a lot to unpack, I have 2 questions kind of about the movie, but independent of the movie. Hard-hitting, once again, either-or questions. Are you 2 ready for these very difficult questions?
Yes.
I am too ready, too fast, and too furious.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So first up, are you a fan, do you prefer American muscle or import cars? Because now that we're in Tokyo, this is where a lot of a lot of Japanese cars make their way over here. Do you prefer American muscle or imports from any country?
You know, it's really tough because, and I really get the question you're asking, but I think we need to go back to World War II for a minute, okay?
Oh, why would I ever expect a straight answer? Go ahead.
So when I think about World War II and this idea of excommunication from the European super empire, and I think about where all of the Nazis hid, they all hid in South America, which is why you have so many half-Aryan, half-Brazilian, super gorgeous bodybuilders. But American bodybuilders, like a true American muscle, those guys tend to wear board shorts because they're scared of showing off their...
I'm so sorry, Nico.
Oh, no, I
believe that
absolutely
you
understand what
misinterpret-
you were saying, but I don't have an answer to that, so I was just
can
going
answer
off
this.
book.
That's fine.
You know, the problem is American guys don't ever want to wear the poser. They always want to have like on full long trunks. And I don't know if it's like junk shame or if it's like skinny leg syndrome, but American muscle tends to be all about dem board shorts. And the ones who aren't all about dem board shorts let you know with their OnlyFans page.
Even The Rock, who is like the most American muscle as you get, is like a fan of the board shorts, right? And like he's got nothing to be ashamed of.
Same thing with Chris Evans, my precious Chris Evans, who has best possible superhero physique I think anyone's ever had in a Marvel movie. And he is not a big fan. Like, since Captain America began, he does not show his legs in public.
It's the calves.
Weird.
They all, him, The Rock, they all have trouble with their calves. It's a tough muscle.
And it's a muscle that you really can't grow because you walk on your calves 24/7. You're always using them. So to convince them to grow is so tricky.
I remember, and this is going back to similarly, we were just talking in the last episode, wink wink intro, about MTV shows, and I don't remember what show it was, but I remember there was like
Yes! I know
there's
which one you're
some show
talking
where
about.
everybody wanted plastic surgery, and this
that's
one dude
right.
was like, I finally have huge calves, and I was like,
He got
I don't
calf
get it. Like,
implants.
what's the-
I remember that
It was
episode.
it was true life. I'm getting plastic surgery.
You're right.
Yeah, that sounds
and the calf
right.
one, and the calf one really freaked out. I can't believe we all remembered the calf muscle implants.
Because I remember, like, 2 girls got a nose job, and I'm sure there were other stuff, but, like, the calf, I was just like, that's such a weird request, but I guess it's not.
It was literally the first time I became aware that that was a muscle area that men could feel insecure about. I
Same.
had recognized that some men have skinny calves, but I never really thought of it as something that someone would be self-conscious about.
And here's the thing, and I'm gonna kind of put some things in terms of some things. We make jokes a lot about, the quality of masculinity as it intrudes on the possibility of coexistence for gender. And something Kevo and I were just joking about the other day was, other than the fact of you shouldn't poop on things and you shouldn't shake your piss slit out at people, why did people decide you always have to wear clothes covering your junk? What guy walked up to his buddies and was like, my cock is just so cool that if other people see it, they're going to go blind. So I'm going to cover it, but for your sake. And so then his buddies are like, my dick's pretty big. Yeah, no, my glory dick has got to be covered too. And this just kept going. And then, there were guys that were like, I don't want to be part of this, but I don't want to be called out on it. So pants for me.
You think that in this situation, it's a guy with a big dick who's hiding it, as opposed to the small guy I don't really...
Yes, that's very Nico.
No,
guys,
that's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Oh, yeah, no, it's not.
What I said was somebody said, mine is so good, I can't let you see it because you will go blind.
So we're not talking about size at all. This could be shape.
Oh, it could be size, but the point is, on average, the American man adds an inch to their penis size when asked about length. On average, guys who weightlift tend to add roughly a plate to their maxes.
And on the subject of penis sizes and things that are related to them, I honestly have to ask of the question. So, are you saying it is American cars versus literally the rest of the world, and that's what we are choosing between? Because
so generally, it's Asian cars. It's mostly Japanese cars and maybe some Korean cars, but traditionally, at least in the franchise, it's kind of like American.
So you're not
muscle,
talking German.
Not. I mean,
kind of, but broadly, not really.
But in the franchise, it's like American muscle versus Mazda, the car that Han
What the fuck are you two gonna do when they start introducing the spaceships if asking you where the German cars are leaves you this concerned?
Well, muscle or import or outer space, there's going to be a third option.
True.
As long as they're playing the soundtrack from this movie, it can be any car. I don't care. This movie had the best soundtrack by far.
Agreed. Thank you.
So,
glad you like
to ask the question again, and you can answer about dudes or cars, American muscle or imports.
I would have to answer, I don't think I really have much of a preference on either, and I more think something of having a preference.
I'm with you on that because I don't think I care about I'm sure there's something different about the way they drive.
There's merits for both, I would probably feel.
But if you're going to ask me what cultural aesthetic I care more about, I'm going to be really honest. I loved Hot Daddy Carl's house. Okay, so the dad in this movie is actually the dad in Revenge, that show we love. He's not the main girl's dad. He's the love interest dad.
He was a dad in 4 episodes, so he's the dad.
Well, fuck that. He's hot anyway. And so his little Navy apartment, which I loved how much they were like, look how Navy I am with T-shirt. His little Navy apartment and his big old thick daddy chest. Oh, God, he would be such a cute sub. Okay. His house was like a magical little elf nook. Everything was this super wooden, all the books, it felt like the Shire, but very modern. So cars, meh, just give me his apartment. And I loved that he was like, you can take the bedroom.
So you're saying that you prefer import to American muscle when it comes to the aesthetic of the set?
To interior decoration.
Yes, and I guess if I'm going to pick a car, I guess I'm going to do it, but Rush, give me a good old-fashioned 1950s Mustang, doing the sort of driving, racing each other, but then pulling off and secretly being gay together, because same scene.
Okay, so...
We did love the Hulk car as well.
Okay, so I'm going to say car is American, but House is Japanese.
Well, I mean, House is Hugh Laurie, and he's British, so...
it's a bit of Fry and Laurie. And Kevo, what about you? All of these questions can be answered however you want to answer them, but how do you want to answer this question? Because Nico now has 4 emojis in a thing that I only thought 1 emoji would go.
I think you gave me some of Kevo's emojis, because I think some of his extrapolating for me was just kind of helping. He was saying that he doesn't think there's a benefit to either conceptually, unless you know how to drive it. Then there's merits to both.
So,
fair.
No preference...
And then a whole lot of stuff about dicks and houses. Yes, that's no preference, and then a bunch of stuff about dicks and houses.
Dicks and houses. Okay, I got that.
It's not, I mean, it's on brand. It works.
It's a dick house.
Oh, God.
It's mighty, mighty. He's letting it all hang out, unless he puts it
and
behind
he's not.
closed doors.
He's not letting it all hang out. He is specifically saying it is so mighty, mighty, you can't see it.
What's question 2?
Is the word oil one syllable or two?
Well, you just said it as oil, and the way you said it, I was like, is he saying moil? Are we talking about the guy
We're
who performs
not
this?
exclusively talking about dicks.
We're not.
Even though
Well,
we are,
I was
but
like,
we're not.
it's like drawer.
Explain to me the question, because I'm sure it relates to the film, but I didn't notice anything of the pronunciation.
Well, no, it doesn't. It's
Okay.
The backstory of this is that in college we would play. Joe didn't go to college with me, but like my friends and I would play a lot of charades, and we would start charades with syllables. And when I got a word that rhymes with oil, or maybe it was oil, I said it was two, and we went into this whole debate about whether it was one or two. And back then, this is back 08, 09, everybody was like, "You're wrong, it's one." And then since then, people have come around, and to the point where early in the question being asked, almost everyone said two. They were all on my side. And then like the last 15 people that we have asked has said one. Even though we know technically it's a diphthong, which is a 1.5 syllable word, I'm still asking one or two.
So you're asking 1 or 2, but you know that technically the answer is 1.5.
Well, we know what the answer to a question we're going to ask later in this lap is, but we know that definitively now, but we're still going to ask the question. So yeah, we know the answer, but I'm still looking for your preference.
All right, I got to interact with the question, though. You should have typed it. You should have been like, how many syllables is that word you're looking at? Because I heard you say oil, and I was like, that's 16.5 goddamn syllables. Like, that's so much fucking oil. We're Beverly Hillbillies. What's happening? Like, if you're asking me, it's oil.
How many
It's
syllables are in the word OIL?
One. It's oil, just like it's drawer. It's not a drawer. When I had this one coworker, Pat, and she would be like, I worked at a bank, and she was like, Nico, how much money is in your money drawer? And for a really long time, I was like, really, like, I thought she had like a severe speech impediment, and like I would try to like find ways not to ask her questions that ended in sounds because I felt so bad for her. That she was constantly embarrassed trying to say drawer in front of people. So one day she's like, oh, yeah, I was so upset. My husband, he broke one of the handles off our dresser drawers.
So it's just sometimes?
Well, so I was like, wait, you know that in a dresser there are drawers? But you think this is a drawers? And she was like, well, they're different things. One's got socks and one's got money. And I was just like, you're so old, I don't want you to have this job anymore.
I don't want to get off topic here, but an artist who draws and is a drawer, is that 2 syllables or is that 1? Or is that not a real word?
I would say that a drawer isn't really a word. You would call someone who technically does like a lot of initial like sketch concept work, you could call them a draftsman. And somebody
good word.
who
I like that.
produces art is an artist. What you're talking about would either be a penciler, a draftsman, or a sketch artist. You wouldn't really call them a drawer.
Well, you ask the comic book guys, you get
I
a comic
know.
book answer.
Yeah, a draftsman. I like that word. That's a good word.
We actually have two different people on our concept art team. We have a draftsman and we have an esthetician. Someone whose job it is just to come up with the format, and someone whose job it is to design the gilding of the lily.
Interesting. Kevo, oil, 1 syllable or 2? Oil.
I feel like it's a the versus the situation where it depends on the context, but predominantly 1 syllable.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think there is absolutely contexts where it makes a ton of sense to draw it out to 2, just for comfortability of speech.
Or when you're singing Oil Spill from Bob's Burgers.
But if you're saying oil can what from Wizard of Oz, that's 1 syllable.
Ooh, and you know what? I think it's because of the way the can hits.
Exactly.
Oil can what? Yeah, I'm about it.
So now to kick off the conversation, so here is an interesting question, an interesting dilemma. We have been asking the Clutch Letty Moment, and she's not been in a ton of movies. She's been in about half the ones we've watched so far. She's not in this one. I thought for a second, and I'm going to go first for a reason. I want to get your take, because I'm very curious here with both of your struggles with this movie, where this is going to go. Archetypally, Neela, who, by the way, do you recognize her from the first season of Unreal?
Jonah did.
Jonah was immediately like, Chloe from Unreal. I was thinking Grace Chloe Moretz.
I looked her up on IMDb. This is her first role, which is amazing. I don't know if we ever knew that, but Natalie Kelly, who plays Neela, this is the first on-screen role that she's ever played, which is amazing to me. She's like the female lead in this. But I was like, what else has she been in? She's doing a lot of TV work, but she was in the first season of Unreal. Anyway, I think archetypally, Neela is the Letty role, that she has a soft inside, soft center, but she's got this gruff exterior. But I think in a broader scope, she is not Letty because I don't think that Letty would ever let anyone talk to her the way that she allows or has allowed or whatever, victimized by DK. Like, he is so
Agreed.
cruel to her that I don't think Letty would, even Dom, she would be like, I'm not taking this shit, I'm out of here. Like we saw in 6, when she drives away from Owen Shaw, not knowing who he is or what's going on, she leaves him. And I think that it's so Letty until it's not. Like, it kind of undid in that moment everything the movie was kind of setting up Letty-wise. So I thought Neela for a while, and I'm not sure who the Clutch Letty moment is, who the Letty character is in this. And I would like to get your thoughts, Kevo, Nico.
I would say Neela is a combination of Letty and Mia
Yep.
Okay.
for how those bits would pertain to the lead male love interest character, and all the bits from those characters that didn't fit what they needed for Neela spilled over into the minor character of Reiku.
I kind of think Neela is representative of kind of everything wrong with this film. For all intents and purposes, the beginning of the movie, that opening act that was clearly just... Because this movie isn't a movie. This movie is a CW pilot. That opening is everything that would have come before Fast and the Furious Tokyo Style, the CW live-action adaptation of the Fast and the Furious series that's never allowed to interact with the film franchise, right? The woman in the beginning of the film who is like, race for me, make me a fuck toy, fill me. Like, ridiculous that a man would ask a woman to say that dialogue. Truly, because I would like a guy to say the same thing. Yeah, I'm going to race for you. I'm going to race to get to be the guy that puts my junk in you, and if I'm not, that guy's going to do it. Switch the script and see if your line still makes sense. If it sounds fucking gross coming opposite, then maybe you shouldn't say it.
Yeah.
So Neela represents just the same take on this. As a matter of fact, Zachary Ty Bryant of Home Improvement, and I guess Veronica Mars on Buffy, is the bad guy in the beginning of this movie. That's the oldest brother from Home Improvement.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
And
we know. Yep.
He's playing exactly the same characters that we see over and over again in the Tokyo side of things. This is my territory. You don't belong here, and I'm willing to ruin everything I've got with all of these extra connections I have, including my ownership of this woman who's going to needlessly put herself in constant danger because Dick is that amazing, right?
Well, before you take down everything, I want to say, I think if the rest of the depictions of women and people of color and everything were better, and I'm not saying that they're good because they're not, but I think that there is something beautiful narratively in, like, the more things change, the more things stay the same. Like, I think there is a reason why they are saying, whether he's in Arizona or in Tokyo, it's the same struggles, it's the same kind of thing. Like, I think that narratively makes sense. It's just the fact that, like, no woman has agency, which is a bigger issue. But I think the actual story beats, like, I think it's a positive. I don't know if it actually is a positive, but I think in that way it could be seen as a positive.
I get what you're saying.
I get what you're saying in as far as the Wizard of Oz, right? And I'm not being funny or silly. This is kind of the Wizard of Oz. He's Dorothy. He wants to get away from this. He goes to a form of his family in a far-off land filled with bright lights and colors. He's whisked around by a wizard who wants to show him everything. And he doesn't exactly have to go home, but he kind of has to go home. But it doesn't really come together that way because even though Dorothy is going back to Kansas, she's going back with Oz in her heart.
Yeah.
In that regard, I do get what you're talking about. But the thing that makes me sad is this isn't wherever you go home is. This is wherever you go, your misery is built into the fact that you were an unwanted bastard.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this kid literally is everything we would see in an episode of Unsolved Mysteries, where Robert Stack would be like, he had a troubled life growing up. Bounced around foster care. And that's not to say that every child that goes through foster care is going to come out some sort of Jeffrey Dahmer. Far from it. Because the American foster care system, for all of its flaws, has still turned out some beautiful children, right? I don't see this as he's going to find himself wherever he goes. I see this as wherever this kid goes, he's going to be miserable and everybody in his wake is in trouble.
I don't think it helped my perception much either with the first cop that we saw him interact with, who was, like, so ferociously overacting and up in Lucas Black's face that it made me uncomfortable. It didn't help me sympathize with the character. That they were already doing enough for that. It just made me uncomfortable and feel like they don't really have a grasp on what a character like this really would be going through.
I do hear what you're saying about if we could get past the mistreatment of minority perspective, perhaps there is some good to this movie. And I do think there's a ton of good to this movie. Okay, so while I do have some problems with the lack of positive representation for Asian characters in a film set in Asia, because, I mean, if you're just stealing Asian bad guys and you're just stealing Asia as a backdrop, you are literally using them as evil Asian stereotypes. This is Fu Manchu. This is quite seriously verging on the Mandarin. Everybody who is not an Asian wizard here to help the white guy, who is the white savior of this, by the way, he is straight up Iron Fist, drives better than anybody doing their style of driving, but he's from another culture and does it better. If you take those things out, I like things about this film, and I appreciate it as a note in the franchise. I come from comics. For every amazing 20-year run on Uncanny X-Men by Chris Claremont, there's Joe Casey losing himself to cocaine on Uncanny X-Men for 12 issues and being fired abruptly and having to reclaim his life. For every one of the first, there's the latter, and I can appreciate this movie for that. It's hard for me to get past the deep-seated, outright xenophobic appropriation that I still see in our world today. If I fucking hear one more person call it the China virus, then let's take a look at our material, where anytime Americans are placed in a situation with Asian culture, the Asians are evil. That's a problem for me.
100% on all of that. I agree fully on all of that. But I think there's another thing to keep in mind, that I'm not trying to give this movie a pass by any stretch of the imagination. We just watched a movie from 2013. Now we're back in 2006. And so, again, still too recent to have this stuff, but like, it is farther in the past than we have been talking about, and there's the homophobia slight in the first one, and like, things are not good, and I'm not trying to give it a pass, but I think it is also worth remembering that the world was different 6 months ago than it is today, but like, also that far back as opposed to just 5 years ago, it's like 15 years ago, right?
Also,
so, like,
this is the first Justin Lin one, and he like approved all of this stuff, like, right or wrong.
Not just Justin Lin, but this was also actually the first Chris Morgan script as well. It was the first from both of them working together.
Yeah.
Right, and they both become the defining voice of the behind the camera, behind the pen, whatever, right? So,
and this was only Chris Morgan's second developed screenplay. His first film was the 2004 movie Cellular, starring Chris Evans, Kim Basinger, and, interestingly enough, Jason Statham.
Jason Statham with too much hair in that movie, by the way. Cellular, too much hair for Jason Statham. He looks much better bald. Go on, Nico.
I do hear what you're saying about Justin Lin approved this, but as a queer man, Ryan Murphy does not speak for me. And the things Ryan Murphy says that are okay to say of gay people and that gay people do horrify me. He has portrayed gay people as child-stealing rapists for 15 years. He doesn't speak for me, even when he is a queer man creating queer art.
Totally fair. I get that.
And I do wonder, in the broader sense, like, even if he is, like, say he is the best advocate for Asian voices, and, like, let's just say that is true for a minute, like, I don't know if he's so early in the franchise that it's not like he can be like, hey, this is what we're doing. Like, you can as a director, but this is also still a studio movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
Absolutely. 1,000,000%. Yep. Yeah, John Boyega has been the spokesman for what you're saying. They've kept saying, be blacker, and then my blackness became a problem.
What he has said about the Star Wars movies in the last, like, month or two, or however long he's been saying it, basically since he's like, okay, I did my tour of duty, now I'm going to say what I really feel, like, he is putting words to a problem that we all knew existed, but nobody ever really talked about. So,
and it's a problem that always existed, even specifically in that franchise, that people don't like to talk about. The actors who worked on the prequels talked about what a nightmare it was working with all those green screens, and Empire Strikes Back is why Carrie Fisher developed her cocaine addiction. These films were always problematic, which isn't to give them a pass. Yes, we do need to fix this. This has always been a problem, and I am glad that he is being so vocal so immediately on the heels of the movies so that perhaps something can be done.
Yeah, because it's not like Star Wars is over, like Star Wars is on a mini hiatus, but like Disney's not going to stop making movies that basically make $1 million a time just by putting the word Star Wars in there, right? So, or 500 million if you're Solo. I'm so sorry, Solo.
Solo, which had so many directors.
Solo.
I have a very important question for the two of you before. I want to make sure that we ask it, and I don't know if you're going to remember the details of it, and I also might not be able to get the details right, but there is a great debate that this movie has spurred that I think maybe finally we agree on, but I don't remember how we agree.
I never remember because it's gone so many different ways, but we can open it up again.
So I just want to ask the question, and I don't want to add any flavor to this because I truly do not remember where we all fall, but Sean gets in trouble in America, flies to Japan.
Yes.
knocks on his dad's door. His dad answers, says, Sean, you're supposed to be here on the 7th. Sean says, it is the 7th. He says, hold on a second. He closes the door, goes back inside, and lets out a woman of the night, right? He lets out a prostitute, whatever. We've always wondered who messed up, because realistically, you're probably not hosting a prostitute on the night that your son is supposed to arrive, unless you're really the worst person in the world. Military background, ostensibly not the case. But someone screwed up, either Sean's dad, Sean's mom, or Sean, and we can't get to the bottom of it. We have spent so much time, way too much time, debating this, and I want to know if either of you thought at all about that scene, if it just went by you and you didn't pay it a second thought, but someone messed up there, and I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
First question, why do we assume she's a prostitute?
Oh, no, that's because he said thank you very much. He literally thanked her for her sex. That is what that is meant to represent, the same way his Navy shirt is meant to tell us that he's a navalman.
Even myself potentially read it that way as well, but especially without any further development for that character or seeing him do anything like that again, later throughout the course of the film came to wonder whether that was what the situation was. And I myself have often thanked a trick after walking them out, so, it doesn't mean it wasn't just a hookup.
Number one, if I can elaborate on that in two ways, half the time when he's walking the trick out, it's because they're walking funny. Number two, the other thing I want to make a comment on is I actually did think about it a lot. It distracted me for half of the movie. And this is what I was really fucked by the fact that he was like, domo origato. That was almost as bad as the way everyone kept saying gaijin in this movie. He kept saying, or do you think I'm just another gay genie? I was so overwhelmed. But so I have two opinions. It's either number one, he is a recovering alcoholic and his son coming to town kicked him off the wagon, which is why there's so many beers and he looks so sad and he is this woman's sponsor.
He's her
number
sponsor.
Two,
Okay.
I like that.
Right. Number two, standing appointment, non-refundable, had to get it in or he was going to lose the yen either way.
You know what? I think you do bring up an excellent point because that makes me wonder if there might be something that was cut for time. If they had cut that scene with his dad, it would have made the plot more confusing, So there was just nothing they could do to help further explain how he fucked that up.
I'm wondering in that regard, this lap, because it's the missing pieces lap because of Letty's amnesia, in the intro to each episode you guys have been on, Joe and I have been watching the deleted scenes. We've not done that yet because we're going to record that intro on Saturday before this comes out, but I wonder if there's anything like, Joe, that could be the missing piece of the puzzle. Like, if we get clarity, I don't want anything else in this movie. I just want an explanation about the dad.
I know.
And you want it to be that he's an alcoholic in recovery and he's this woman's sponsor, right? Because it elevates. She's having a dark day. That's why she doesn't like that she's got to leave. That's why he seems conflicted about it.
And to Kevo's question about whether she's a prostitute or not, we've had a listener write in whose dad was in the military. He's just like, oh, yeah. And she has said that her dad has said, oh, yeah, that's just like what you do.
Oh, no, absolutely. My sainted uncle, be he ever so sainted or saintin, whatever you want to call it, he is, for all intents and purposes, he was my grandfather. He was my grandfather's twin brother, and I loved my Uncle John with all my heart. And every now and then he was a lifelong Marine. He was a service Marine his whole life. Every now and then he would just be like, I got a little bit of advice for you. Always go to the bar with your most handsome friend. Find the most handsome woman. Make sure she's got a really ugly fat friend. Work really hard to get your friend with the hot girl. Because the fat one will let you do whatever you want.
Interesting.
That was my grandfatherly advice from my grandfatherly figure. And every story he ever had about the military was like, yeah, we were all hanging out at the barracks. And this one guy was like, look at my dong. And just like slung it. And that was like every story he had. They were not good stories.
No. So the problem that we had, the real question, like, and why we asked this is because he goes, Sean, you're supposed to be here on the 7th, but Japan is 12 hours ahead. That would assume that he thought Sean was coming the next day, but the math doesn't add up. Because if Japan is ahead and Sean's like, it's the 7th now, he was assuming Sean was coming the next day because he wouldn't have missed Sean at the airport. And because he said, I planned to pick him up at the airport, and he has a possible lady of the night with him. He has a companion that night, and we're like, so did he get the companion after Sean didn't show up at the airport? Like, did he meet up with his companion the night before?
Pussy game so strong it gave him vertigo. I don't know what to tell you.
That's good enough for me. Because we were always trying to figure out if, like, he just assumed that the mom was kind of a screw-up because whatever, but I don't know. There's no real rhyme or reason here, so I don't know.
But hopefully a deleted scene fixes it. You're right.
Yeah, I'm going to want to know what you guys find out from the deleted scenes. I don't know that I can analyze that scene in a dead author situation, because I just sort of assume somebody was trying to make a joke about the time difference but messed it up, or something like that. So I don't know if I can come up with anything in context other than he's just super drunk.
Okay,
you know
fair
what?
enough.
One of my least favorite things in any movie is whenever anyone's like, "You've been missing for 7 years, 11 months, 5 weeks, 11 days, and 36 hours." And I'm like,
That reduces!
you need to make that 8 years, my foolish friend, right?
Yeah.
I can't stand that stuff. And what I've actually had happen on more than one occasion, I've loved that X's for Podcast has been stretching its, faggoty X-Men wings, and we've been bringing in people from all over the country, and we have a few foreign correspondents coming on. I'm so excited. The thing that has happened on more than one occasion is I've had somebody be like, "Yeah, can't wait to see you tomorrow morning." I'm on at like 9 o'clock and I'm ready to go, and I'm sitting there, and I even reminded them about the time difference, and they somehow got it in their head that we're an hour ahead. That gives them an extra hour because it won't be that time for them for a little while longer. So that means they get an extra hour. Okay, so if it's 9 o'clock our time, they don't need to be on until 10 o'clock their time. No, it's 8 o'clock your time, my friend. You missed the episode. I'm sorry. I left you at the airport to fuck this prostitute in recovery.
So what you're saying is just no international people can be trusted. Is that the message here?
Yes.
Oh, no, these were all domestic. These were all domestic. I don't trust anybody on Mountain Time.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Mountain Time. What are you doing?
The Ozarks.
What are you doing? So do we have a moment? Do we have a Clutch Letty moment? Do we have a Clutch Letty character?
Oh, Han. Absolutely.
I have the anti-Clutch Letty moment. And I think that Nico brought it up and I was saving it because that's what I was going to use. But the moment at the beginning where the blonde is like, "You can race for me," that was like the most anti-Letty moment that have ever happened in a film.
I want to build on that, and Zachary Ty Bryan crying when she says, "I guess I have a new date for prom," makes it even more all the most anti-Letty situation I have ever seen in my life. That is like an anti-Letty vortex.
Yes.
Anti-Letty, the cuckening.
We've talked a lot on here, and by a lot I mean we mentioned it a couple times, but he's a football player. He's got all those football buddies, and he throws a baseball at the car, which doesn't make any sense. I noticed this time that he pulls the baseball out of his pocket.
He's like Happy Gilmore. He just carries one around with him.
Keep your stupid comments in your pocket.
I don't understand. I mean, baseballs don't really fit in pocket. Like, he's wearing jeans, it looks like. Where did the...
Well, these are magic jeans because this is this magic... Okay, so no, and
is this the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants? Like, is this
I actually think it's the Sisterhood of the Traveling Clutch, but here's the... Because I'm still convinced there's a Clutch of Destiny. Here's the thing that we make a lot more dick jokes on this show than we do, per se, on HTML. When we're talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which you would think would have a ton of dick jokes because it's all superheroes.
No,
right?
on there you just talk about whether guys are cut or uncut, but go on.
No, that's X's for Podcast, but
true.
good for you thinking about everybody's foreskin and bringing the moil back. I think that the situation is that these movies are representations of these cars as penis metaphors, and that's even part of why I'm so embarrassed. What's the main... I can't get over the fact that Bow Wow plays... Twink. So, Sean,
yeah.
thank you.
Well, so Twinkie, by the way, Twinkie
yes.
is an Asian slur. He was originally cast as an Asian actor, then they wanted to have him, but it's someone who's yellow on the outside and white on the inside. But
they replaced that character with Bow Wow and kept the slur name for the character.
But like Donald Glover is referred to that as an Oreo, right? Like it's like
this movie is a mess.
I don't know. It's all troubling.
The baseball in the pocket even proves it. This movie is just a mess.
Barbie's dream house is burning and no one is telling her tits are melting. So
is that a Panic at the Disco reference? Go on.
Actually, is that a Panic at the Disco reference, right? Barbie's dream house is burning and no one to tell her that her tits are melting. Is that a Panic at the Disco reference? Is my favorite Fall Out Boy song. So the thing about this situation is that when Brian drives through that house when Sean drives through that house in order to prove his masculinity, he's literally saying like I'm penetrating this barrier. It's literally him saying, number one, homes mean nothing to me. I've never had one. Cars are my home, so fuck your house. Number two, he's saying I can penetrate anything when I'm behind the wheel. It literally is a metaphor for his dick. Now, All the other dicks are like, yo, my dick's so flashy. Brian is Brian, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't confusing him for someone else.
Wait, but Brian's not in this movie.
No, I know, but I keep confusing Brian and Sean. I kept thinking that Sean might be supposed to be Brian's, like, dumb younger brother. I just wasn't sure.
He's the Brian stand-in in this movie.
He's Southern boy Brian.
I have feelings and thoughts about the idea that Sean might eventually be intended to be brought in to be a Brian replacement that we can talk about later. So interchange their names as much as you need to.
So, Brian's like, my cars are so flashy because I get them officially from the government. And Dom is like, my cars are so flashy because I know how to be the best street racer there is.
Yeah.
Sean comes in, and Sean's like, my dick's wonky on one side, look at my car. And he is just like, I mean, I don't think you need to put premium gas in. And, like, he is just the most pathetic advertisement for AAA I've ever seen. And it's like sending him to Tokyo re-Dickenses him. He gets, like, a dick-juvenation.
They make him the White King of Tokyo.
Yeah, they make him the White Dick King of Tokyo. But the other thing is he only rules over other non-Asian people, and I guess for that reason, I'm kind of relieved. But now I want to get to the thing that really, like, I'm not being ironic. Han is my favorite thing about this franchise times a million.
Yeah.
I like a lot of things about this franchise as a whole. Dom might be the best version of that character in 20 years even. But for me, Han has a charm and a magic and almost a street racing elegance. There's something symphonic about the way Han interacts with these plots. In this movie, because he's given so little characterization outside of it, he is essentially the gay genie. But in the other films, it's about his charming suave confronting the idea of what you might expect from this guy who, I mean, like, I love Han, but he kind of looks even a little bit mousy.
But those cheekbones.
This movie did my precious Han real dirty. Until Han said, I'm willing to destroy a car to find out what a man is made of, that was not my Han. I need a reason that Han would be working with such disgusting pieces of shit, like this Justin Timberlake reject wannabe.
Yeah.
Han is so far evolved past these people. I turned to Kevo and said, oh my god, I get it now. We're going to find out that Han is still working for the feds, and he's trying to break up the Yakuza, and that's what happens. It wasn't. And it didn't. And then that fucking retcon can suck my balls.
Yeah, so the difficulty with Han is that they write a very cool character who actually originated in another Justin Lin movie that we have not seen or covered yet called Better Luck Tomorrow, which came out, I think, in 2004. So the Han Solo character, the Han Lu character, comes from another movie, and he gets transported into this movie. And he's so cool, and he's only around for about an hour 15 until he's killed off in this movie, that they're like, oh, this kind of didn't work. Vin Diesel is back now. We're going to reboot next, but we need to get this guy back because people love this guy.
Yes.
And everybody else, we can kind of drop
fans were
all
like,
that.
just like you guys said, like, Han is the best character in this movie. That's the only part we care about, right?
And so not only is Tokyo Drift super polarizing in whether people like it or not, because it is the standalone thing that, like, 2 is kind of standalone, but at least Paul Walker was in 2, and we add Luda and Tej. Like, we add, like, Tej and Roman and whatever, right? Like, there's still stuff, there's connective tissue there. Until Vin Diesel shows up in the last 30 seconds of this movie, this is a standalone movie altogether, just in name only tied in. And then to further basically muddy the entire timeline, so much so that, like, when people retrofitted things, they retroactively moved the first 3 movies up 3 years, I think. So, like, it's all crazy. And then you're right, like, the whole, how does Han's death mean something now? Oh, Jason Statham killed him. Like, that's now the vengeance of the 7th movie. Like, it's all weird. Like, this movie not only is polarizing, but, like, way the fuck complicated things just because Sung Kang's portrayal of Han is so cool.
I think there is perhaps even some merit to what Nico was suggesting about his theories about Han, because frankly this wouldn't be the first time that someone we knew and loved walked away from an explosive car crash because they were working with the feds, and it's really the only explanation that I can find for a lot of the things that I hated about his behavior in this movie. It wasn't until Nico pointed out that he is retroactively dealing with Giselle's death, which explains his coldness, his aloofness. So those parts I was more comfortable with, but like the way that he was acting inferior to
DK.
Justin Timberlake.
DK.
Yeah, I didn't want to say DK. I was trying to think of his name, but yeah. The way he was acting like inferior to him and why he needed to do this business after he was just tapped by the fucking DSS to help take down an international terrorist. He's acting like he's inferior to the Yakuza. Like he's part of the Car Avengers. I don't think that he would be doing any of these things unless it was a situation where he was working with someone to try and take these characters down.
And you can actually retroactively save this movie by 50% for me if it is explicitly this was part of a bigger picture that Han was in on. Because half of my frustration with this film is Han is absolutely the best character in the movie, and he really is Genie from Aladdin. I'm just shocked that Sean wasn't like, get back in your lamp, I gotta find my monkey.
And I don't think it could have been part of the plan from 2006, but it would have to have been part of the plan from 2013, for me at least personally.
The retrofitting is kind of clunky, but at the same time, it's kind of amazing how well it works for something that should not work at all. The fact that it works at all is like, oh.
But it visually is a different scene. Like, literally, he pushes the car keeps going. It's a physically different scene. The man does not get out of the car and then walk around before the explosion.
You're not supposed to do this the way we're doing this, where you're watching one then the other. Like, this is 7 years in between, so it's reminiscent of, but I agree, I concede to your point.
And I get that, but unless these movies are never meant to be rewatched, they should have thought of that.
Yeah.
What I want to say, and I don't want to spoil how it happens, but it does seem, and maybe to saving this movie by 50%, the upcoming movie, Joe and I do not have answers yet, but it seems like this movie in particular is going to play a large role in the future of the franchise, which seems crazy given
because they wrote it off for like
other than
so
Han,
many years.
This means nothing to anything. In the future you might like this movie more, but we don't know yet.
I don't know that we could ever like this movie more. We can appreciate its role in the franchise and the things that they were able to pull from it to make good things. But I feel Nico would agree that there's a lot of inherent flaws to this film itself that can't really be
totally fair
worked around.
Yeah, you can't just like glaze over that. I get it.
So now I'm going to ask one more time, is there a Clutch Letty moment?
Well, for me, the Letty character is Han.
Yeah.
Because Han represents an emotional core outside of the main character's ability to interact with his surroundings. Dom is closed off and aloof. It takes Letty, who herself can be closed off and aloof, to remind him that he's not better than the people he protects sometimes, right? That he needs to stop acting like he has to always be right. He has to always be in charge. Brian actually needs Roman because Roman is kind of a clown, right?
Yeah.
Roman is never trying to be so serious, and it's Roman's humanity that reminds Brian how not to be all ACAB. For this film, Sean has no responsibility or moral respectability toward anyone else. As a matter of fact, he makes it kind of clear that the women he's after explicitly because of an attraction to them. He doesn't get to know them in any meaningful way until later on. And I know it's a short movie, but he has a meaningful interaction with Twinkie right away. It's not like that couldn't happen in a way that wasn't explicitly written through sexual tension. So I guess my Clutch Letty moment being most of Han, when he's our Han, later in the film Han, but I guess the Clutch Letty moment was Han saying, I'm happy to sacrifice a car to know the heart of a person. Letty doesn't give a shit who you are, where you're from, or what you did, as long as you love cars.
See, I also wound up saying Han was our Clutch Letty. I didn't have a moment, but I think he's Letty for the reason that he is mysterious, we want to know more, and he's taken away from us too soon. I think archetypally, I think narratively, I was saying archetypally, I think Neela is mostly Letty, but then becomes not Letty. I think that the purpose that Han serves in the story here is kind of the same purpose that Letty serves over the first 4 or 5-ish movies.
I actually think that I have 2 answers for this.
Love it.
I have a Clutch Letty character and a Clutch Letty moment.
Okay.
Hit us with it.
Despite being a villain, I think the character that when I relaxed my brain and thought who most reminds me of Letty, the answer that I came up with was the uncle who dresses like Lou Bega, Uncle Kamada, with his very emotionless yet honorable dynamic, I think he gave me the most Letty energy of the characters in these movies.
So why do you think Uncle Lou Bega is...
Yeah, just his demeanor, his attitude. I think he's a very severe yet honorable character in terms of the way that he handles all of his business, and it very much reminds me of Letty.
And the way that he's like, yeah, we could do a race. That'll solve everything. Sure. Like, it does feel like she's like, this is dumb, but like, let's go along with it.
You can kill my nephew, and that's how we'll end this.
He's a dickwad anyway. What is your Clutch Letty moment, then?
Dom showing up at the end. I'll be real. I am preemptively infuriated by the scene. What do you mean Dom's just palling around Asia? I know there's something going on in the next movie that he shouldn't just be palling around Asia, beating everyone and saying things like, I got nothing but time. I really doubt that, Dominic. Overall, that was probably the Clutch Letty-ist moment of the film, I think.
Now, in that scene, I love that answer. That's a very good answer. In that scene, did you recognize the celebrity cameo?
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of a trick question. It's actually very much a
very trick question, but we want to tell you a fun fact.
Is it like the fact that Diddy Kong is secretly in one of the windows in Mario Kart Double Dash?
Kind of.
Let's say kind of.
Yeah, actually.
Kind of.
That's pretty cool. Tell me about it.
We found out this year that the faceless woman getting out of the car at the end in the pink bra and low-cut black dress is Chrissy Teigen.
Shut the fuck! I'm looking at my Cher Barbies, and I feel a kind of gay happiness at that.
His Cher Barbies next to his Mariah Carey Pop Funko. We love Chrissy Teigen.
She tweeted earlier this year something along the lines of, "Hey, I was in Tokyo Drift. I don't remember if she's seen the movie or not, but she's like, I'm in a pink bra in a parking garage." And almost instantly, this guy sent a screenshot.
Was like her?
And she was like, "How did you find this so fast?" And if you Google Tokyo Drift boobs getting out of car, it's like one of the top 3 responses.
And that's
what do you mean it's one of the top 3 responses?
I don't know.
What are the other 2?
It should be number 1.
Well, now we need to have a poll of what everyone's top boobs getting out of a car moment from Fast and Furious is.
Oh my god, you guys realize that probably means that Dom got the green light from John Legend?
Oh.
Love that.
So
no.
Good.
Maybe he's driving an Andre BMW 3000.
All right.
Thank you.
But yeah, no, we found out that earlier this year, and it's kind of amazing. She like just sat on a parking garage floor all day, and then, because she's Chrissy Teigen and looks the way she does, which is her personality is the only thing that supersedes her physical beauty. Yeah, she just got out of the car, and they just showed her like deep cleavage without a face. So yeah she's in that scene. So you're welcome.
I only would have loved it more if her mom was in it with her too. I love her mom.
I love her mom. I love her husband. Like, Chrissy Teigen is one of those people who's but I think Chrissy Teigen is here to save the world. Da, 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 da. Right? Like, she might be the Avatar. She can bend fashion and comedy and lip syncing and commercials. If Hulu is to be believed, Chrissy Teigen really is a Chrissy of all trades.
I was really excited when we figured out that it was, like, when she told the world that it was her, because you can't see her face. I don't think she's credited. And she was just like, yeah, that was me. And everybody was like, oh, this is awesome.
It's like when they revealed Deep Throat.
Or it's like when Jason Sudeikis said he tried really hard to never have it revealed that he's the one that punched Baby Yoda in the face. He tried real hard when he found out what his role, he was like, oh my god, I get to be in an episode. What do you mean I'm punching that puppet?
Kevo, I have a question for you. We talked about, I think on the last episode, about the kind of the balletic movements of cars and how you were finally realizing, I think said that they finally felt different to you in the last movie. What did you think of the actual car movements, the car cinematography in this movie?
As soon as you said balletic, I immediately flashed to the scene of the line of cars drifting down the mountain.
Yeah, beautiful.
It was beautiful. The scene itself came across as kind of hokey to me, but I was sitting there entranced watching it. It's some goddamn amazing directing. I wasn't shocked to learn that this was Justin Lin's first of the franchise, the way I was shocked to learn it was Chris Morgan's and the jump that he went through from 3 to 4. Whereas, I really see the beginnings of what Justin Lin is going to be bringing to the franchise, starting with this movie. There was nothing visually wrong with this movie, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And if I can actually hop on what Kevo just said about the drifting scene, one of the things that I thought made it really genuinely beautiful, honestly, was we didn't have enough women driving in this film. And I know I've said that since the beginning.
Yep.
And I know that is like a really big thing for me. But when you give me Letty, who is, in my opinion, the best stunt driver of the crew, and you show me that this franchise respects that a woman has chops, I want to see a woman have chops all the time, right? And not just her pork chops while she's making out with another woman in the corner. So Kevo saying it was kind of hokey. I did think it was a little bit almost, it made a moment really transparent. The thing that shocks me the most about this film is it didn't stay in Arizona and it didn't become a hybrid sports car movie.
It was Neela driving in that scene, right?
Yeah, she's one of them. Yeah.
So that scene definitely. I don't think I realized that because the steering wheels keep switching sides, especially in the ones with many foreign cars. So I get very confused as to who's driving. Being reminded that it was Neela driving in that scene, especially, I think it was amazing.
I mean, as this movie pointed out from the instant message from Bama Boy, why don't I ever see you drift? Because you never asked. We just didn't ask Neela to drift. That's the reason that these women aren't driving. We're not asking them to drive, obviously.
Now, I am going to be real. By the end of the movie, I'd fallen in love with Neela. I maybe needed a little bit more active involvement in the reclamation of self-power that Sean got to go through at the end of the film. One of the things that, just flat out turns me on the most about Dom in a lot of ways is he's not afraid to ask for help. He knows when it's gotta be him. But when he needs his fam, and that's it. I wanted that level of recognition for what the others bring to the table. I don't think I hate this movie, but I think I have to hate the things wrong with it.
Sure.
It reminded me of Black Sash on the WB,
Yes.
which was this 90s kind of like karate show.
2003.
Mm-hmm. And it was about white people being better at martial arts than Asian people. In many ways, it was kind of like the proto Cobra Kai.
It had Corey Sevier.
Oh, who's so jacked.
Yeah, I know.
Really, if this had been an 8-episode TV show, and I had room to love these characters more.
Every time you said it was a CW pilot, I immediately thought of Black Sash. And if they just took out some of the pregnant pauses from this film, it would have come across like the first 5 episodes of a WB CW teen drama.
How much of that influence do you think is because of the high school setting?
Well, I think part of the thing about the high school setting here was that they tried to play something in a tropey, cute way. It's no mystery to anybody who listens to X's for Podcast that we like anime in this house. Jonah stands at the hardest, but I have seen a good 1,000 episodes of a handful of animes. That's how it goes. Well, because Sailor Moon is 200 episodes, Cardcaptor Sakura is 100 episodes. Oh, the Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon!
Yeah, no, this is the best break-in that I'm going to have for that. The character that I mentioned earlier, Reiko, her first acting job, the same way we were talking about Neela earlier, was as one of the live-action sailors, Sailor Mars, on the Sailor Moon live-action show, Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon. And I really wanted to say that, so thanks, Nico.
Oh, absolutely. And so anybody who doesn't know that's what the plot of Sailor Moon is, she's a warrior queen, and it's actually about rebirthing cycles, so the live-action one is part of the canon, just so people know. It's important to keep in mind that, anime is this cyclical thing, and it kind of goes on forever. There were things about the scenes at the school that were kind of tongue-in-cheek, ha ha ha, isn't this a cute anime nod? This didn't feel like a movie made by people from Tokyo about Tokyo, and maybe that's where some of the disingenuousness came from. There was a lot of love notes to Tokyo in this film, though.
I not only strongly agree with what you're saying, but I think an element as well as to why they went with high school students was to take some of the danger out of the film, which was already pretty high stakes danger when you're talking about a character who is a stranger in a foreign land and doesn't understand the cultures. But by putting a high school student up against the Yakuza, it's not as perhaps dangerous seeming as if they were all adults. We don't necessarily think that this high school kid is going to get murdered.
So I'm gonna ask you to do me a special job, and you're going to have to help me take out the Yakuza, and this is going to be what we do because we're a family.
It's what we do because we're a family. It's important. I gave up being a cop for this. You're welcome. Oh my God, where are the superpowers? Oh my God. So, okay.
No one in this movie gets powers.
No, actually, I have to disagree. I have given Sean the drift effect, even though he doesn't drift that much in this movie. But the moment in the movie that was so pivotal was he should have died when that car came crashing down on him. When DK barrel rolled him, he should have died. But instead, this force came over and the car moved in a way that no set of Kerplunk ever indicated to me the kinetic motion could continue, right? And he had this magical drifting ability, but I don't think he has it alone. That's where the family is in this movie. They can only access the drift effect when they're believing in each other.
So his powers are still semi-latent because he is not as
he's in high school.
family-oriented.
He's in high school,
No,
too.
it's because he's never had a home, so he's been disconnected from the Force.
If Power Rangers has taught me anything, you can still have superpowers when you're in high school, okay?
And, here's the thing. Brian might not have been part of, the Fast Fam right away, but Brian was part of a brotherhood. Whether or not you think ACAB or your Blue Lives Matter, you have to recognize that being a part of that shielded community means you believe you are part of a brotherhood. So Brian was always about family. Everybody in these films are about family.
He didn't discover family, he just switched to a new family.
Yeah.
A better family. And it's that this
ABC
is...
family.
ABC Family! Freeform! So it's just that in this movie, Sean learns the drift effect because he finally has people that are going to help him slide.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
I have a question for all of you, and I think I know the answer, but I also don't. The more I think about it, the less of an answer that I have. But when Twinkie brings Sean to the garage for the first time, and he pulls in and he sees all these cars, he sees all these women, and Twinkie tosses him a box of tissues, and he says, "For when you blow your wad." And he laughs. Ah! Is he saying that Sean is going to blow his wad from the girls or from the cars?
Both.
I think it's about the immersion into the So one of the things I keep saying is that the cars are dicks, and they're riding into this immersive, magical wonderland, right? So while the other guys in these movies are all about, check me out, one of the things is we're seeing Sean in his pupil stage, and I mean that both as larval pupa and as a pupil. He's still a student, right?
Literally,
He's being brought to this world for the first time. I'm not trying to be gross, but whether it was your first time smoking weed or your first time taking a drink or your first real fucking cool kid party, we've all had that moment where you got to tell yourself, cool guys don't look back at explosions. Cool guys don't look back at explosions. Oh yeah, I have done this before. Fun. He was literally saying, don't come too fast, buddy. Hang in.
So
this is my life, and now you're part of it.
And just new life in general, the culture. Like, this is you're entering the coolest place you've ever been. Act like you've been here before.
Yeah, it's act like you've been... That's the perfect description.
He's literally getting to drive into his wet dream.
I love to act like you've been here before. That's exactly what he's cool
what...
guy saying, I'm so cool that I have to use a cool guy expression to say it, but act like you've been here before.
Like, that just reminds me of, like, LaDainian Tomlinson, who was, like, one of my favorite players to ever watch in the NFL, and every time he scored a touchdown, he would just hand the ball to the ref, because, I love nothing more, almost, than the year that Terrell Owens scored, 15 touchdowns and had a different celebration after each one, but there's something so cool about LT just being like, oh no, I've scored hundreds of touchdowns, I don't need to celebrate, I'm just, it's just another 6 for me, so it's like, yeah, that's cool. Been there. You act like you've been there before.
Yep.
This is not old. This is old hat. This is just, And then what does he do immediately? Confronts the biggest guy there and hits on his girl. Dude, did you not understand what I was saying?
Exactly.
Other thoughts? Question mark?
I think I was pretty aggressive about this movie at first, and then I hawned down a little bit.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna. My final thoughts on this movie.
Well, let's talk about the music. I want to hear your thoughts about the music.
Yeah.
The music fucking banged. The music fucking banged and fucked and kicked. The music was, and BT is my boy. BT is my man, and he's tweeted back at me a few times, and he's talking about blowing your wad a little bit early, right? But so my hero has tweeted back at me, and I literally think he might be the greatest composer of our time. And I put him up there with Sting and Sondheim. I guess it's a lot of S's. I just think he's really talented, right? Brian Tyler did an infinitely better score for Tokyo Drift than I necessarily feel BT did for the Oscar-nominated and record-breaking and super successful Fast and Furious score. This had subtlety. This had nuance. There was a thoughtfulness to this score that indicated the internals of these characters in the scenes they were in. the soundtrack to this movie literally just sounds like my iPod in 2006.
Yep.
I literally sat there singing along with every song, and I just kept being like, yo, this soundtrack fucks.
But other thoughts? You were about to say something before I derailed you about music, but other thoughts about this movie, Nico and Kevo, and also Joe?
Not that I'm complaining about seeing Lucas Black in a towel, but it probably would have been easier to buy that 24-year-old as a high school student if we hadn't.
I was going to ask you guys, what did you think about Lucas Black ostensibly 17 in this movie?
No, he's not. No.
He comes back for one scene in Furious 7 that's supposed to take place like a month later, but it is instead
or minutes after
9 years later, and he looks like
40, again, not 30.
Everybody ages different. He doesn't look bad, but he looks older
40.
than the 9 years would have said. Like, it's wild. Like, get ready.
I am
for
very
a
interested to
mindfuck.
see. Yeah. Another thing that I really enjoyed was the on the plane sitting in front of Sean were an Asian couple toasting with a white dude, and they were all so enthusiastic and engaged that I find myself wondering what their story is. I love when extras are so extra.
Yeah.
It's always entertaining. And the final thing I would want to comment on that we didn't really talk about much is the absolutely hilarious and bizarre character of Marimoto.
Okay.
I loved his temper tantrum when he lost his race, and I can't believe that Sean absolutely motherfucking killed him with a car, because there's no way that guy walked away from that. And we're all just fine with it, I guess.
Oh, yeah, no, people, like, these movies progressively kill more and more people, but there are early, like, in the second one, if you'll remember, when they're racing to get that cigar, a truck just drives over a car that somebody we kind of know is driving, and we never pay that guy second mind, but he is not only dead, he is obliterated. Like, this movie franchise, like, gets to the point where, like, it's like the MCU or DC, where it's like, oh, there's just collateral damage. But, like, in these early movies, it's like, no, like, 3 or 4 people die, but, like, they die in grisly ways, and we are not talking about it.
It's why they really needed to jump the track from trying to be taken semi-legitimately to straight-up cartoon violence, because with the stakes that they were raising higher and higher, there was nothing else they could do. Otherwise, it's just these people, good and bad, are just killing everyone indiscriminately, and it's really hard to watch. But if you just sort of unplug and think of it as, like, cartoon violence, it's a lot easier to digest.
Yeah.
Nico, any final thoughts about Tokyo Drift?
No, but I'm getting really stuck on some weird Twitter threads. Evidently, Justice for Han connects to a person who actually really needs justice.
Oh, no.
Oh, God, no.
and so I'm like, I'm not ignoring you guys, but I'm like, oh shit, there's real people.
We were just hoping that Han was okay, not that somebody actually needed help. Like,
Okay, I just looked it up. We're gonna stop saying Justice for Han. Justice for Lei Dai Han is a group seeking justice for the sexual violence victims of the Vietnam War.
It's like, guys, search the hashtag and find the new hashtag. Like, Justice for Han, like, that's more important than our Justice for Han. But, like, our Justice for Han was already a thing.
People are tweeting at Romney about it.
Well, you know, Romney's got other issues.
Wait, but they're tweeting at Romney about which one? Well, but here's the thing. This is now a franchise. It just is. I don't think they're stopping anytime soon.
No.
So Fast Furious 14 can be about Lai Dai Han and getting justice for Vietnam War sexual abuse victims. Why not? We'll do a movie about that.
After space.
we
Yeah,
could.
well, maybe before space.
Space. Joe, any final thoughts about Tokyo Drift?
No, the only thing that I thought that was, because we were watching this, and I know that they hadn't seen the end of 6, like the post-credit scene of 6. I was watching, and something that they commented on, that they're two different scenes. A woman runs up to the Mercedes and, like, looks in the door, but there's no one in that car. And it's not because they were planning this. It's only because, like, they didn't have an extra sitting in the car. So she, like, opens the door and, like, looks in and there's no one in the car. And I was like, oh, that actually kind of fits.
What is the Mercedes? Because I don't know things like that.
Jason Statham's car that he kills Han with.
Yeah, let's talk about so I know you didn't like the retcon, but, like, are you excited? Because I know that you've been waiting for Statham to show up. Now that you know how he appears, what do you think? And also, I'm going to spoil, like, not the reveal later in this episode, but we are not doing Furious 7 next. We're taking a little bit of a pit stop, which we'll get to. So there's a little bit more of a wait. But are you guys excited now that now you understand the Justice for Han kind of, not quite fully yet, but what are your thoughts on heading into Furious 7?
I think it's a very car franchise thing to do, to only want justice for the male characters and none of the female characters who are treated as condoms.
Well, there's more of a reason. It's not just that Han died, and I don't want to spoil what it is, but there's a specific reason why people are angry about Han in particular.
Yeah.
But are you excited for 7, or are you just kind of like, it's all the same now? It's just like another movie that I'm probably going to hopefully like.
No, I'm actually really, like, I love them the further they go. Like, the further they've gone, I've loved them more. So that's part of why this really bummed me out.
And yeah, no, I'm excited for 7. The question had been, was I excited for Statham and what that's setting up? No, not really. But, I'm excited to keep going on the franchise and see how the next movie turned out, knowing everything that happened during production.
Yeah.
All right, you guys ready for some games?
I've already sent you all my tweets.
Nico, you sent 4 tweets. I'll figure this out later, but let me first review last episode's picks. And I think we found that what I was not afraid of, but like angrily predicting was going to get some bullshit points, got some bullshit points. But we're going to see how that goes. So first up, I found Dan B. Maximov at the Red Prince 2 said Universal Orlando should replace Fast and Furious Supercharged with Resident Evil The Ride. They both have Michelle Rodriguez. Boy, do we have a podcast for you. Of course not. I'm bad at this game.
Nothing.
But now I'm curious who's the Red Prince and the Red Prince 1.
Yeah, you would think. And this has underscores in it too, so like it's a real complicated, I don't know, man. Matt Thomas at Matt Thomas says key television series for understanding the Fast and Furious franchise, The Golden Girls. Boy, do we have a podcast for you. And he responded with a prayer hand emoji and also liked it. So Joe, you get 6 points.
That's 6. I'll count them. I'll take them.
Joe, you're up to 31 points. Congratulations.
Damn, am I in first? Yeah.
Yeah, you've always been in first. You've never not been in first.
Don't tempt Nico like that. Stop.
Nico found LR nod to the 7th at Ghost Coles. Hey, Eugene Lee Yang, why didn't you include Giselle in your Disney princess ranking? Hashtag justice for Giselle. Boy, do we have a podcast for you, even though it's not the same Giselle, and even though Giselle is spelled wrong, and MLR responded and said, yes, The Fast and the Furious, my favorite movie, starring Giselle the Disney Princess. So you get 5 points. And then Nico, somebody named Nico Action on Twitter, responded with Justice for Giselle singing a happy driving song, which MLR and we liked. So Nico, you get 5 points. Again, amazing. Killing it.
Perfect.
Well, if I can.
When I saw that, I lost my mind.
If I can for just one moment. I can't take all the credits. It was years and years of people buying into my lunacy long enough for me to make it viral. And now it's contagious. And I'm just proud of how far I've come in a game that I have no real stake in.
You're going to do good until you're not on the next lap, and I continue to beat you.
But Nico is
I'm
now
gonna keep
officially
getting points,
in second
even
place.
not on the
Nico has
show.
passed me in scoring.
But I'll never pass you in love.
Then Kevo found at Cars Picks, and Kevo hit a legendary sticking point in this game. I don't know if Cars Picks blocked us. I don't think that's the case, because I went into a private browser. The tweet might have been deleted, so I don't know what the tweet was.
So you tweeted them, they got to delete it? That's even better.
I don't know. It might have been like,
5,000 points!
You guys,
Trust me, we've been blocked by many of my tweets.
Multiple episodes in a row, not only did Joe not get a response, but he tweeted at someone who, in the 2 weeks in between, was suspended from Twitter.
Oh, yeah, that was it. No. They got suspended. And I'm like, I didn't cause that.
That's not the same.
We've been blocked, I think, like once. Like, not too often. There's been a couple deleted tweets.
You're right, it was
but the weirdest thing was a couple times in a row, Joe tweeted at someone who, like, straight up, like, violated some rule, or, like, their profile just no longer existed. And it wasn't, like, a block, because I looked at other accounts, but, like, yeah, no, it just went away.
Yeah, suspended account is more points than deleted tweet.
Sorry, no, I wasn't trying to pee in your Wheaties or anything.
Okay, so, Nico,
no,
you're
you're just the winner.
4.
Let me explain them. The top 2, number 1 is for Kevo, number 2 is for me, and then the next 2 were, it was just really nice to see how eager the fandom is to get more Giselle and more Han. I had found in my search for things I wanted to interact with that It's actually hard to find Justice for Han tweets, not just because of the horrors committed against the Vietnamese people during the occupation by American soldiers, but because it seems like whereas a lot of the things we've discussed that I've latched onto with this franchise are people kind of making one-off comments here and there and getting like 6 responses on them, it seems like my big thing, Justice for Han and Justice for Giselle, both correlate to kind of like a bigger picture. The posts I was able to find that sort of talk about why the two of them deserve a future in the franchise together explicitly are from a very popular Fantastic Four. Jesus Christ. Okay, good night. I called it Fantastic Car Beasts yesterday, so I guess that was a little better.
Fantastic Car Beasts and where to find them?
Oh, God, where to find them? At Nico Action on Twitter and Instagram. NICO. No, it was evidently a Fast Family Twitter that has like 140,000 followers or something. And Screen Rant, which of course has, corporate level sponsored follower counts. And so those two having such a large presence alerted me to why Han is so endearing. I think there's something about Han and Giselle. They sort of buck the tradition of the franchises. I kind of do think Tokyo Drift is a different film. I feel maybe perhaps like it was written as a different film and had Fast and Furious like superimposed, right? It's just interesting to see that the cultural appreciation of Han and Giselle is as considerable as the cultural appreciation for, say, Brian.
Yeah, there's something about, and I think it's because we don't have a ton of Han and Giselle, and because their love seems pure in a way and not like movie-ish. Like, it feels more real and genuine, and people really respond to them. Plus the fact that they're both essentially taken from us after the 6th movie.
And so stupid hot.
Also
yes. Yeah, that too.
Yeah, so that first tweet, I'm going to give that one to Kevo. I like the humor of the second tweet. Reverse it. I think I'm more likely to get a response on the first tweet. The first tweet's for me. I'm coming for you, Joe 2.
This is Nico. Nico found Hex-I, star emoji, lightning emoji, common emoji, at Lexi Skywalker. The Rise of Lexi Skywalker, the last
appropriate.
Lexi Skywalker. One day I will watch all of the Lord of the Rings movies. One day. Turns on Tokyo Drift. Boy, do we
yes!
have a podcast. Yeah,
This woman literally hits all of my pan buttons,
right?
Like just down the column, man.
And then Kevo found Man-Made Monsters at Man-Made Monsters. When you failed a mission one too many times because your quote-unquote good controller is charging, and you're forced to use the backup that drifts so well it should be in the Tokyo Drift, in the movie Tokyo Drift. Frowny face, angrier frowny face, cursing frowny face. Boy, do we have a podcast for you with a picture of a PS4 controller absolutely demolished, taken apart, trying to get repaired.
And I've been watching Jonah try to master Mario All-Stars. He's on the fucking pachinko level of Sunshine, and it's killing him, and the fucking thing isn't mapped to use the GameCube controller, which was the system it came out on, which he would boss it in 2 seconds. It's just like, I really related to that post today.
There's been a very interesting thing on the internet. I've never played the game, but there's been an interesting thing on the internet the last week or two of like, is Sunshine good? People are like, no, it's not. And people are like, oh, actually it is. So like, that has been such a divisive, because everybody loves 64, everybody loves Galaxy, but that Sunshine one, people are not on the same page about.
It's actually Jonah's favorite, and it's my least favorite of the main platformer series. For real, it's actually just like Tokyo Drift. The things about it that are key to the Mario franchise are things that the franchise simply couldn't exist without. There's an Italian plumber, or a Bowser, or a Goomba. There's a something, there's cars, that reminds us that this is the universe we're choosing to play in, but the secondary levels of it, that they're fighting pollution, and he has to use specific nozzles. The rest of it just feels like trappings that don't belong on this setup.
Nico, I think you're mispronouncing it when you're talking about the Italian plumber. It's a Goomba, not a Goomba. Goomba.
Oh, but well, I'm Cuban, Greek, and Irish. I cannot say that word.
Hey, T, keep your Goomba out of it. I found Eddie Malden at Eddie Malden. Tweet just says Spelunky 2, Fast, 2 Furious. Boy, do we have a podcast for you.
That's for you, man. That's dead on for you. Jesus.
Joe, what is your tweet?
It's from Mads Star at Mads Maddie _. Ruth said yesterday that she was going to play Tokyo Drift by Teriyaki Boys at my funeral, and I'm here for it.
Boy, do we
have a
podcast
for you. I was going with the teen girl vibe. I mean, like, they seem to respond to everything, and she seems like a teen girl, so I was hoping that she's either gonna block us or respond, so.
Dude, I so hope you're about to get catfished by a nasty old man.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as he responds, Joe gets points. It doesn't matter whether it's actually Maddie or an old dude, right? So
It's just a 65-year-old man LARPing as a 16-year-old girl that has a friend named Ruth.
Oh my god, that's the whole LARP! That's the whole LARP!
The whole thing.
It's just about Ruth!
It's just about Ruth, man. Yep.
all right, the final game to play is Dude, What's My Car?
Dude, what?
My car.
What?
Your car, dude.
So now I'm assuming, Nico and Kevo, you're going to play along with Joe because you love Nico. You love taking shots in the dark at what these cars are. And Kevo,
Please.
you're just here for emotional support. But I mean, I'm going to assume you both want to play with Joe. Is that still correct?
Oh, I've wanted to play with Joe since I heard his frat boy voice.
Thank you.
All right. This picture, it's 3 pictures. This car comes from Hector. And I'm not going to say the subject line of the email because it is a spoiler. It says, hey, Joey's got a car pick for y'all. This is from May 17th. It's been a while.
Been a while.
Here's a car that rivals another manufacturer of cars from the same era and was often confused as one. Just want to tell you all as well that it's now one of the most expensive cars to buy because it was so good. See y'all later and stay fast, stay furious. It is Japanese and it is red. I mean, if it's...
It's a Hyundai Veloster.
I think I know what it is.
What is it?
I think I can Babe Ruth this. Is it an Acura NSX and he said it looks like a Ferrari and people thought it was a Ferrari?
You have the model right, but not the make.
A Honda NSX?
Honda NSX.
Acura and Honda is the same thing, but yes.
Is it?
It's a Hyundai Veloster.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the car. There's the
Yeah.
car. So since you got that in one, I'll do another one from Hector really quick.
Okay, go ahead.
Because he sent 2 batched. So here's another one.
What did he say the car looked like? A Ferrari, or did he say the people thought that
It
the
rivals
Acura was
Ferraris and was confused as one.
Yes, that's what I thought. Okay, cool. The hint was good enough.
He says this is the second one of these from Japan. This car is one of the cheaper alternatives to the first one, but still a fun car to drive. I will just say because it's themed to the last one. So this is another car that was confused for a Ferrari. It's another Japanese car that is red. Do you know another car that is confused for a Ferrari?
It's red and it's confused with Ferrari. Is it Guy Fieri's ass?
Yeah. How did you? You're so good at this game. It's unbelievable.
And it's fun
this
to
is the
drive.
part where-
It's fun to drive too.
I'm kind of more of a Tyler Florence man. If I'm picking sexy chef men, Tyler Florence is so stoned all the time, and he just loves that food you put in his mouth so much. He goes, "Oh my god," and he bangs the table. It's so hot.
All right.
Second Japanese car.
It's from 1991. It's the second quote-unquote Ferrari from Japan. It's a cheaper alternative to the first one, but still a fun car to drive.
Is it some kind of Skyline?
No, different company.
No, I don't know.
I'm just gonna send it because I mean I could get you to guess, but I want to see.
Go ahead.
I don't want to take, but it's a Toyota MR2.
Oh, the MR2 was confused for a Ferrari? Really?
It looks like a Ferrari.
I know I see this one, but I don't think a Toyota MR2 was ever confused for a Ferrari.
It would never be confused with a Buick Skylark.
That's
No.
Mr. 2.
This is like a nice little Miata. My friend had an MR2 in high school, and it was actually really cool. And I like these cars a lot, but like confused for a Ferrari, Hector, you're stretching there, brother.
I mean, you're not gonna get that one past Mona Lisa Vito in the court of law, which I thought my impression was not a bad one. We'll see how
NSX, yes,
the
the NSX, yes, I get it, but the MR2, I don't
Well, these
know.
were themed. They were both Ferrari cars that weren't Ferraris, but
Yeah, makes sense. I get it. Those were good ones, though.
I mean, Ferrari.
Faux,
Ooh,
F-A-U-X,
love that.
yeah.
As opposed to the Go Rari, Geaux, which is a New Orleans Southern Creole car, maybe.
I enjoy that car because it runs exclusively on gumbo and jambalaya leftovers.
Sounds
And
tasty.
beignets from Café du Monde.
But it smells good, too.
Nico, Kevo, thank you both for joining us for Tokyo Drift. This
It's
has
a
been
fucking
another
blast.
blast. Thank you so much.
Always.
I'm crumping at you.
I'm glad we finally made it, and I'm excited to see what comes next now that we are back on a linear timeline.
Well, we are
Fast
on a linear
and Furious
timeline,
7 Deadly Sins.
but we are changing it up because the next movie is not Furious 7. Well, the next movie is Furious 7, but before then, because of real-life events, we are going to cover next Fast and Furious Spy Racers Season 1,
Which I
is a
think you
Netflix
guys
series.
might really like, actually.
Nico specifically, explicitly requested to cover this, so I'm looking forward to
Do
that.
you think they'll like it, Joey, or no?
Well, it's got one of my beloved husbands. It's got a guy who actually means like a lot to me in the voice cast. So I'm in for
Ooh.
Tyler Posey.
Yeah, the guy who plays Tony Toretto is Nico's a big fan of.
Oh,
I'm a
then you're
Luke
definitely
Youngblood,
going to like
too.
it.
Well, and he's just such a great guy, and he's so good to his fans, and he's charming, and he's funny, and he just seems like I just want to smoke out and lay back with him and just talk about why the ceiling isn't stars. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So we will talk more about the schedule on the next episode, but Nico and Kevo in 2 weeks are going to be talking about Spy Racer Season 1 with us, and then a week later, bonus episode, they're going to come back for Spy Racer Season 2. Not bonus episode, but bonus Nico and Kevo episode.
Yes.
Regularly scheduled Tuesday, and then the week after that, Furious 7. So no Nico and Kevo next week, but then 3 in a row, baby. Netflix, Furious 7. So sorry they have to wait a little bit more to get to the main franchise now that we're linear in order, but it's interesting. We're getting some interesting, good stuff coming up, and I hope you guys like it. We have not seen Season 2 yet. It's not out yet here, but
I think you'll like Season 1. I have
so.
I have a strong feeling that you'll find it very enjoyable.
In for a pound.
Please plug whatever you want to plug, whatever podcasts or other projects you want to talk about to our fans who are still hopefully listening.
Well, you guys can check us out on Instagram and Twitter at, myself, at Nico Action. That's NicoAction. Also, we're doing some pretty cool things. X's for Podcast is about to completely relaunch as This is X of Swords to celebrate the upcoming major crossover. We're bringing in 6 new correspondents, and it's going to be like walking into your local comic shop in a roundtable type discussion. We have people representing all kinds of X-Men fans that the books now are doing their best to represent. So this is going to be truly a meeting of the merriest mutant minds, and I can't wait to get to that. Also, now that the world has kind of settled into a place, we're getting back to doing some Fantastic Four on HTML. My joy at Joey's endless frustration with me is always worth listening to.
I will preview for you and for our listeners that I think this next episode we're recording, which is the first Chris Evans Jessica Alba movie, I think I liked more than Jess, so we'll find out.
You liked more than Jessica Alba in the movie?
No, sorry, Jess Montez. Montez is our other
sorry.
guest in those episodes.
I was hoping that you were saying that Jessica Alba looked like she hated this movie, and I really enjoyed it.
She might have. I don't know. I was too busy freaked out by her blue contact lenses or whatever. We got to talk about that. That's got to be a thing, right?
Oh, it is.
Kevo, anything else that you want to add to the plug list?
You can find me at Kevoreally, Kevoreally, and that's about it. I felt differently about Fantastic Four, but we'll get to that on another time, on another show.
Check it out. Yes, me and Montez, who is basically has no presence on this show other than us talking about her, but a big fan of Zack Attack. She and I are doing 4 Fantastic Four movies with Nico and Kevo.
Ooh,
the original unreleased, largely unreleased one. Both Chris Evans, Jessica Alba, other people that I don't remember. Ian someone, we'll talk about it. And Michael Chiklis, of course. And then the new Fan 4 stick. So we'll talk about all of that. But for all things, Too Fast,
I need to be clear. His name is pronounced Yoan Gruffith. Yeah.
As soon as I saw the name, I'm like, oh, he's Welsh, which means I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, I know what Welsh names look like when I can recognize it, but I'm like, no, I'm not even going to try. There's a lot of D's in there for no reason. For all things Too Fast, Too Forever, go to cageclub.me, facebook.com/TooFast2Forever, or at TooFast2Forever on Twitter and Instagram. Email us, family@cageclub.me. Check out our Patreon page at TooFast2Forever.com. Come back on Friday for Michelle Rodriguez music videos. Ooh. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe, too.
And that was Nico Vasilo and Kevo Risse of Husbands Talking More or Less, and we'll tell you all about it
when we see you again.